We are back. It's another great episode of Liam Picks Fights, brought to you by Prize Picks, the simplest game in DFS if you guys want to get involved with UFC 271, the Super Bowl, NBA, any kind of daily fantasy props. It's not you against the whole field. It's just you against Prize Picks projections. Go ahead, use the link in the bio, link in the description below. Promo code Liam, 100% deposit match up to $100. Now, today on the show, guys, we have an excellent program ahead. We are joined by two very sharp guests, and we're going to be going over UFC 271 from a betting perspective. We're talking about Robert Whittaker versus Israel Adesanya and the entire card from bottom to top like we always do it. Appreciate everybody who's already here active in the chat. I mentioned on Twitter as well, if we can get to 750 subscribers on YouTube before the end of this stream tonight, I will post all my bets tomorrow at noon. I normally post it right before the fight time, but give you guys a little bit of time to tail if you would like to. So with that being said, guys, want to introduce the two great guests that we have here today. Very excited to be joined for the first time by my man, Bo. Coming in. He's not typically on these shows, but boy, we're happy to have him because he's one of the smartest guys in this space, and I think people deserve to hear from you, brother. How you doing tonight?
Good, man. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, my man. The pleasure is all mine. And returning friend of the show, James Blissett from Lucrative MMA, all the way from New Zealand. He is coming at us live from the future. It's tomorrow where he lives. The UFC is on Sunday where he lives. It's going to be a glorious time, but we really appreciate you joining us, James. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, I'm doing well, brother. Thanks for having me on, man. Happy to speak fights with you and Bo. I am in the future right now, and I can see to the future as well, and we're going to make a lot of money this Saturday, this Sunday for me, so happy to break down the card for everyone watching.
Cheers, brother. From your lips to God's ears. That's what we're hoping for. I have a lot of action myself. I'm fired up about this fight card. I'm fired up about the betting potential as well as the entertainment value. So I do not want to delay at all, boys. I want to get started right off the top talking about William Knight, one of the largest weight misses in UFC history. Guys, I've had some personal involvement. I mentioned this before. William Knight was supposed to be grappling Anthony Malkoun, a teammate of mine from Renzo Gracie Warwick. He's booked this match like 10 times, but he keeps taking short notice fights in the UFC. So he can't get the match underway. But I think that William Knight, would have had his hands full with my teammate, to be frank. And I think he's going to have his hands full on Saturday night. Maxim Grishin's a very seasoned pro. He's got a lot of heavyweight experience. I don't know that the weight miss is going to affect him as much as it's going to affect William Knight, who said that his body went into failure during the weight cut. That can't be good before you're getting into a cage fight, especially with a guy like Maxim Grishin, who packs underrated power. He had Dustin Jacoby all sorts of scrambled, and that guy is a professional kickboxer. He was on the fritz in that fight. I thought it could have been stopped at various points. So I like Maxim Grishin here a pretty considerable amount, and I will be betting him. I don't love the weight miss. I think it's like an sort of an unknown that's hard to cap. But with that being said, I think that the skill gap is significant. I think that the price should be far higher on Maxim Grishin. I think he's been severely underrated in terms of betting odds in his UFC run. So give me Maxim Grishin here at minus 155. Bo, I'm going to kick it to you first, my brother. What do you think about this matchup, and do you have any bets?
Yeah, man, I'm actually pretty heavy on Grishin here. William Knight's one of those guys I've faded a couple times in the UFC. I think the Jung odds were pretty short. And he made Jung look like fucking Floyd Mayweather out there, man, with that jab. And then just the eternal body lock that kept happening. I don't think Knight technically is very good. And his ability to win rounds here is pretty low margin. If you look at, the last time Grishin got knocked out was against Ankalaev. And I think Knight has a really tough time closing distance here. He's going to get his head jabbed off. And one takedown, and it might be the round of the fight. Grishin's not exactly like a fantastic wrestler, but he's pretty good control once he gets along the fence. And I don't really understand the angle at betting Knight here. I think this line should be a lot wider. I have Grishin like 75%. So, yeah, I'm pretty confident in Grishin here. I think he either gets his finish late or this goes his distance and he wins all 3 rounds. But, yeah, I like Grishin a lot.
Cheers, my brother. I totally agree. I think that takedown, it's one of my favorites, but it's also pretty basic, and he got hit with it over and over. Poor ability to show in-fight adjustments, in my opinion. Lucrative. How do you feel about this fight, my man?
Yeah, this is the only fight on the card that I want to look a little bit more deeper into in tape. I've got everything, all the other fights, I've got them situated. I know what I'm going to bet. I know what I'm going to be betting. with this one, I think Grishin will win the fight. I don't have too much of a case to make for William Knight, honestly. From what I have seen, and as I said, I do want to look a little bit deeper into it, but from what I have seen, Knight has to pull out a bomb or something like, like a random left hand that he caught Cherant with last time out. Maybe not. Knight can, push him up against the cage at times, but Grishin's used to fighting at heavyweight. He's fought a lot of fights at heavyweight, so I don't think he's going to be too deterred by the size. Obviously, Knight's not a big guy, but he's a very muscly guy. He's a very strong guy, even for heavyweight. He can hold a lot of people against the cage, but I don't think he's going to be able to do that for 15 minutes. When they're at range, Grishin is the much better striker. As you said, he almost won a striking match versus Dustin Jacoby, That was a split decision, I believe. Or if it wasn't a split decision, it was a decision that a lot of people were saying he should have won, that he didn't win, So, yeah, I think it's Grishin really so far. But I don't want to speak too heavy before I've gone too deep into tape. I'm going to watch about 2 or 3 more fights overall, maybe 1 or 2 more of Knight's and then 1 more of Grishin's. And then I might look to play a bet on Grishin as well.
Fair play. So right now we've got 2 bets on the Grishin side outright. That would be me and Bo. We got Lucrative potentially interested in a play as well. Bo, you had something to add on the back end there?
Yeah, man, I thought there was a pretty good case that Grishin won the Jacoby fight. I remember watching that back on tape, and I kind of forgot the result, and kind of counted it that Grishin won. And I was surprised by that. I thought he did really well. He actually looked better there than he had in past fights kickboxing. He did pretty well at range. I think he dropped him with a jab at one point. And like you said, there were some times he was pretty close to finishing. And even against Cherant in the Knight Cherant fight, I actually bet Cherant there at like plus 220 before the odds came down. And he was besides getting leg kicked, he was doing pretty well against Knight before getting caught with just an absolutely ridiculous punch on the inside. But yeah, dude, I think Grishin's in a really good spot here. If he's getting up there in age a little bit, and I guess that can be kind of a case to be made for some people staying off of him. But yeah, I think he's in a good spot here.
I feel you, my man. And we got Prodigy MMA, guest from last week, also lining up on the Grishin side here. So I just want to point out, guys, Bet Online is actually the market outlier. When I said minus 155, they're the only book holding that. Minus 169 is the market average. Minus 170 is what you'll see on a lot of books. So I do think that if you like that Grishin number, it's really only available in one place, and the lines are starting to move a little bit. So you might want to get in while the going's good. With that being said, we can move along, guys. We've got another great fight here, and I use that word loosely, of course. We've got Jeremiah Wells, bit of a wild man, taking on a bit of an unknown in Blood Diamond from your part of the woods. So maybe you know a little bit more than I. In fact, I would assume that you do. So first and foremost, we're going to kick this one over to my man James to tell us about Blood Diamond and Jeremiah Wells at 170 pounds. What do you think?
Yeah, so I've done a bit of training at City Kickboxing, so I see Blood Diamond on a regular. But in this fight, I think it's going to be a hard fight for him, man, because he's coming in with 3 pro fights, I believe. Is it 3, 4, 5, something like that? Yeah, there you go, 3 pro fights. And you watch them fights. I'm talking MMA here, right? He's got a lot of kickboxing experience. He's actually fought in Glory. I know there's only 1 Glory fight on his record on Tapology, but he has multiple fights in Glory. You can watch them on YouTube, I believe, or somewhere else. I watched a couple of his Glory fights before. So he's got a lot of experience in kickboxing, right? He's not this new guy on the scene, although he is only 3-0. But even in them 3-0 fights, you go and watch, and the tape is a little bit sticky, He's fighting guys who are not very good, and he is getting into trouble with them a little bit, right? He got that submission on his debut, which is obviously good to see, from an out-and-out kickboxer, comes in and gets a rear naked choke. But the guy, I think he's 0-2 or something like that, So it's basically like getting someone off the street and choking that dude, right? Then he has this fight, which goes 3 rounds. And I can't remember the dude's name, but it was a back and forth fight, right? He hit the dude with some crazy stuff. Man's doing like tornado kicks. He's spinning about 4 times. He turns his back a lot when he's spinning. So he looks a bit riggedy. It's not like Adesanya, right? He's Adesanya's teammate, but he fights completely different. He has got some similarities in the striking style. A lot of the CKB guys are pretty good with feints and stuff like that. But he's pretty different, right? He'll put himself into bad positions in MMA. In kickboxing, it's a bit different because you can get away with turning your back. I know, obviously, the striking's still there. But when you turn your back in MMA, the guy's jumping for the body lock all the time. They're going for a leg or something like that. So you can get away with a lot of this stuff that Blood Diamond does in kickboxing, but not so much in MMA. And we actually saw Jeremiah Wells, his opponent, get a knockout when someone turned his back on him last time out against Warlley Alves, right? The reason he knocked Warlley Alves out is because Warlley Alves was faced the other way. It was a pretty funny knockout, you know. Daniel Cormier was laughing on the live broadcast when he watched the replay, and so was I, because it's a bit of a mad knockout. Like, Warlley Alves turns around, Jeremy just comes with some mad hook from the, you know, like a sucker punch from the back, right? And he's obviously got a lot of power. You know, Paul Felder talks about him being super strong in the gym, is a weight class above Paul Felder usually there. But I think Jeremiah Wells can take the fight to the ground, honestly, whenever he wants. And when he is on top, I think he can do damage. I don't see Blood Diamond going 15 minutes because I do think if the fight is on the floor, is in the grappling, I just think Jeremiah is going to get a stoppage. And then Blood Diamond, he's so unorthodox that maybe he could hit a spinning tornado kick. So I don't really mind what Lag says there about under 2.5, but I think I agree with the line. I think Jeremiah Wells should be heavily favored. He's a lot more experienced, one more UFC fight experience. And yeah, I think the line is about right now.
Fair play. Bo, do you agree with that take, or do you have a different take on this fight?
Yeah, man, I think James covered it pretty well there. I mean, Blood Diamond has only a couple MMA fights, hasn't fought in, I think, 2 years. And that last fight, like you said, that was a back and forth fight. And there's just positions in there with, he should be winning a lot more like exchanges from kickboxing range. And sometimes in there, he's turning his back. It was just a pretty rough look against a guy that you think he should be beating, especially getting into the UFC off a win like that. And with Wells, that's a guy. I mean, Wells is a guy I'm pretty heavy to looking to fade against someone who's competent, just based on the fact that he really has 3.5 minutes of cardio. He's super spazzy on the feet, and obviously he hits hard and he comes forward. But I don't think Wells is going to stay in the UFC for super long. But this is a fight that he should win. I like the under 2.5 here. I actually kind of snuck in on a -142 line that FanDuel posted for the under. There, Lags just said it himself. It was up for like 4 hours, and I think that was just pretty ridiculous. Really good price on that under. I think either way this fight finishes, the price is probably about right on Wells. I wouldn't trust to lay Wells' money line to that price. I think sub is a good angle. Like James said, he can probably take it to the ground whenever he wants. His passing game, you and I actually talked about this. His passing game is pretty good on top. And yeah, nothing Blood Diamond has shown on tape says that he's going to be some fantastic fighter. And Wells should probably handle him here. But you never know, dude. Wells' cardio is really, really bad. If somehow Blood Diamond can survive for, 7 minutes or something, then come back and catch him with some crazy spinning hook kick, who knows? But no, I think that's a pretty low outcome. I like Wells. I think this fight finishes either way and should be a fun one.
Absolutely. And I just want to echo the sentiments that you guys have said so far. I played Jeremiah Wells inside the distance here. And the reason being was because, I think that once he gets this fight to the ground, his passing is substantially impressive to me compared to a lot of guys. A lot of guys in MMA like to get on the ground and, just hang out in the closed guard. But he does a pretty good job of finding opportunities to ground and pound. And he's like powerful with that. And in addition, he uses the striking opportunities to land really good ground and pound that I think that he might knock him out with the ground and pound shots. That's the real reason I don't want to play the subline at such a short look here. I think, at plus 200, I get it because the gap on the ground is huge, but the gap on the ground being huge means he could just posture up in the mount and drop elbows and finish the fight. So I actually think this guy is like very violent. That Warlley Alves knockout, yeah, he probably could have tried to submit Warlley too, but he was like, I'm going to punch this guy through the floor. And I think he might do that again. He's very chaotic in his fighting style, but I have seen that when a fight is in the grappling realm, he is not like spastic. He takes people down and he passes with efficiency. So I think he's going to do that and win the fight. So I'm on him. I would not play the money line here for all the reasons that James mentioned, but I think inside the distance at -138, -139 on Bet365 is pretty short, and the rest of the market was holding something different. So I took advantage, and I think that's a good spot. We can move on to the next fight here. Douglas De Silva de Andrade taking on Sergey Morozov. This is the fight that I have the least opinion on. I did a little bit of tape on this right before we got on the air here. And Morozov, he looks okay. He didn't blow me away. I thought that the Umar Nurmagomedov fight, he got like really, really severely out-wrestled in that fight. And that was a little bit of a concern because his path here is probably to wrestle and grapple. That being said, he showed a much better approach against Taha, had a lot more success. So I don't really know what to make of this fight. I'd have to watch some Douglas De Silva de Andrade tape. But I think that it's a good fight. And, I would look initially at the dog based on his UFC experience and his quality of competition. But I don't have a strong take on this one. Bo, how do you feel?
Yeah, no, that's a good point just based off competition level. But I'm actually fairly high on Morozov, man. Coming into the UFC, actually had a small bet on him against Umar. And yeah, he definitely got out-wrestled there. But I think in general, Morozov has a pretty good process. He doesn't have a ton of volume on the feet, but he's pretty patient, picks his spots, and kind of comes in and counters nice. I think in some regards, the striking is similar to the Taha fight, whereas he's kind of going to be coming forward, looking to counter. And then, like you said, he's going to get the wrestling going. I generally think he's a better wrestler and grappler than Douglas De Silva de Andrade, but it's not by a huge margin. I think as the fight goes on, he can definitely wear on him. And he's got a pretty – I know he got out-wrestled in the Umar fight, but he's got a pretty good wrestling process, man. Like, gets in on a double, changes to single, goes body lock, goes down. He has good control on the ground. I actually think he covers his price here. I don't think Morozov's a bad play at all. Morozov decision at plus money is a pretty decent shout. Maybe he's live for a late finish, but De Andrade has shown he's pretty durable. And it's not a crazy play, but I did play Morozov at minus 200. I think it's a decent look.
Fair play. And I will just acknowledge, the only line that stood out to me was plus 195 on BetMGM. That seemed a little wide, but I mean, that's around the same price that you think it's value. So, maybe that's the hinge point for the matchup around that, pretty high +2 number. James, how do you feel about this one?
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same page as Bo. I think Morozov is a good fighter, and I think this is a decent fight for him. I actually played him as like a plus 140 underdog in his last time out against Khalid Taha, and the guy looked about minus 300 there. He's obviously
that was a ridiculous price, absolutely absurd.
Yeah.
There's no way he should have been a dog there.
No, I mean he looked like he looked about minus 300 or something. Doesn't look like Khalid Taha had anything for him. And as you say, there is some similarities in the Khalid fight and this fight, just in terms of athleticism of both fighters, Douglas De Silva, and the power as well. I think Morozov is going to be able to wrestle. I think Morozov can get top time. We've seen Douglas De Silva de Andrade taken down multiple times in his UFC career. We haven't necessarily seen him run through on the ground or anything. But I've seen him taken down enough times to believe that Morozov can easily do it here. Morozov shot 16 takedowns, on his last time out. That's a lot of takedowns to shoot. Now, a lot of them takedowns, I feel like he was kind of just, it was half-hearted takedowns. Sometimes a fighter will mix them in just to switch stuff up. He had Khalid up against the cage a lot, had the body lock. It gets classed as a takedown, but in reality, he's just changing levels. He's stopping, then he's going for the striking. So 16 is a little bit overblown. It was a lot of them were half-hearted. But at the end of the day, anyone who's going to shoot 16 takedowns against Douglas De Silva de Andrade and who's got better cardio than him, in my opinion, I don't really rate Andrade's cardio at all. Not at 56, sorry, not at 56 years old. I definitely wouldn't rate his cardio, but not at 36 years old. And I know Morozov's, he's not a spring chicken, but the guy's 32. 4 years at that age, at this weight class, is a lot. And just the miles on the clock for Douglas De Silva, right? The only hesitancy I have is the level of competition. Douglas has been in there with everyone, Peter Yan, you name it. But Morozov's fought some decent fighters before. Obviously, he had that fight against Umar. And I know, we're saying Umar half ran through him, but Umar's one of the best fighters in the division, People like us, we know it, but most people do not know that yet. But Umar Nurmagomedov will probably challenge for a belt in the near future if he doesn't keep pulling out of fights or whatnot. So I think he's one of the best fighters in the division. So honestly, I think Morozov put up a decent fight there. He was live in them exchanges at times. He did catch him a few times. That actually impressed me more than it didn't impress me, which is contrary to a lot of people's thoughts on that fight. But I think Morozov is a decent play. I think decision is probably the way to go. Maybe he gets a third round stoppage. So, maybe you just want to lay his money line. But I personally like his decision line plus 130, plus 140, when I jumped in, better than his minus 200, minus 225, because I just don't really see him getting a submission. He does throw the hooks in really well. And if he is grappling a lot, there is potential for a rear naked choke from tiredness. But either way, I do think Morozov gets it done.
Awesome. So the two guys that have actually looked into this matchup with some depth are pretty convicted on Morozov. I skimmed over this fight because it was the last one I was getting to this week. So I'm going to do my due diligence overnight and maybe tail these boys on a good play here. But yeah, nothing really to offer for me on the way out. Just want to shout some people in the chat. Douglas offers no resistance on the ground. Bonquiqui seems to agree with you guys. Also training at ATT. Prodigy again says analysis has been on point. 3 of the best in the game. Truly appreciate you, my brother. And Lag says minimal interest in this fight. Round 3 or decision at -115. Not too shabby. And that would play into James' angle on the tiredness RNC. Plus, it also covers the decision. So great shout from Lags. And if I make it out to New Jersey tonight, that's going to be something I'm interested in as well. The state of New York, so unfortunate, doesn't allow the round props that they do in New Jersey. So your boy's still having to make the trek. But you know what we got to do. We do what we have to, boys. We can move along to the next one here. The last thing I have on the way out was just that Douglas is freaking jacked, bro. At the weigh-in for a 36-year-old man, I don't know what he's doing, but, probably a lot of asparagus and push-ups, I would think.
He's got some an impressive physique, dude.
Yeah,
especially getting up there in age. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's keeping it. Like he has that fucking 8-pack from hell. It was impressive, man. But we can move along here to another fight where neither of the physiques are quite as impressive, but Dobson's at least trying. And that's Dobson against Malkoun here. Probably one of the lower level fights on the card. With all due respect, we've got Dobson. I got to show love and respect for him coming from the great state of Ohio. But he's also coming off of the Contender Series, which I have faded to some advantage in the UFC. And I did bet on him in his fight on the Contender Series. I bet on him to win that fight inside the distance. So was able to cash on him in the past. That being said, I didn't really want to play a money line here. I saw the under 2.5. It was at a great price, in my opinion. I think I played that at -124. So I got down on that for 1.9 units. There's a free play for you. That's something I got in on and something I like this weekend. And I think that, Dobson, unknown in the later rounds. We've seen it, I think, in the amateurs, but I don't know that he's been past, maybe one time in the pros. Not a lot of experience in the later rounds. I think that's a concern here because he is a big, muscular guy. Sometimes we see those archetype of fighters slow down. He's also a berserker early in fights, but he might be a little more reserved and patient here. I just think he's got a lot of power, and I think that he should be able to lift up Malkoun in the clinch, put hands on him and hurt him here. But I also think that if Malkoun fires off, 15 takedown attempts in the first 2 rounds, Dobson might be completely exhausted and get submitted. So I think that there's a path for both guys to finish. I think Dobson's more likely to capitalize because he's a little more athletic, a little more dynamic. We've seen Malkoun struggle to deal with striking at distance. He's a little bit awkward in that range. And with a dangerous guy who's going to throw early, I think that that's probably a bad matchup for him. But with that being said, he's shown an improvement fight over fight in terms of his strategy and was able to close the distance there more effectively last time. So, Bo, how do you feel about this matchup?
Yeah, man, I actually have a pretty decent take on this one. I played Malkoun when I've been watching that line for a long time because I remember watching Dobson in the Contender Series. And not to be completely candid, I think he's not very good. I think he's extremely sloppy. For guys facing little to no resistance against in the Contender Series in all the fights before that. I think he's really sloppy, man. There's nothing that shows me. I know he wrestled in high school that shows me he's a fantastic wrestler. I think he had some positions on the ground against the guy in Contender Series where he wasn't really getting wrist control or putting his hooks in and just looked kind of sloppy. Striking, he definitely hits hard and has a pretty clear athleticism edge here. But outside of that, man, I didn't understand how you could price him as a favorite against Malkoun. I'm not trying to make a case that Malkoun is some world beater, but he's pretty well put together in general. I think as this fight goes on, it's hard to say that Dobson has horrific cardio, but just from the way that he fights, there's no way that that's built to last. And I think Malkoun has a pretty good shot to take over late in this fight. And outside of getting knocked out early, I think +130, +140, the price that I got him at is pretty ridiculous. And I have a little decent bet on him there. I wouldn't be as jumpy to play him at even money. Now I would be a little bit more hesitant to do that. But yeah, I like Dobson late round props. And the under is a great play, man. I'm not on that yet. I'm a little hesitant because it's -150, but I think that should be wider. Either way, it's hard to see Dobson making it 3 rounds. I really, really wish we could have found that decision, the one decision he has on his record on tape. I've scoured the internet for it and could not find it. But yeah, I think Dobson is just sloppy enough, and maybe he comes in here and it's the same thing as the Phil Hawes fight with Malkoun, and he starches him and he covers his price. But I am willing to find out. Also, I think Malkoun live option could be good just to mitigate the chances of getting knocked out in the first minute or two. Because like you said, he's fairly hittable from range, but I don't think he's a bad boxer by any stretch. And I think as the fight goes on, he should have a pretty clear advantage here. So yeah, I have Malkoun at +30 and +40.
I think that number one, that's a great bet because you're going to end with significant closing line value in all likelihood. And so for that reason, salute you, sir. And just as a message to everybody watching, numbers matter, prices matter. And so when you're like Bo sitting there with the best of the number, that sets up live opportunities. It sets up hedge opportunities, and it just puts you in a better position. Anytime you could be like the bookmaker and eliminate that VIG, I think it's a good position to be in. So cheers to you for that. And on top of that, Malkoun has the UFC experience, and that is an angle I tend to like when I'm looking to fade somebody. But I also just think for me, I want to stay away at a pick'em price in what I consider a pick'em fight. I'll just bet on violence and hope that the sloppiness on both sides leads to somebody getting finished somewhere. James, how do you feel about this one?
Yeah, this is an awkward one, man, because there's not a lot of tape on AJ Dobson, so you can't come to too many conclusions about the guy. What I will say is looks like he's very athletic. Even the last time we saw him, which is the most tape we have on him, is his fight on the Contender Series where he fought Hashim Arkaga, right? And he won via rear naked choke in 4 minutes. I played the under 1.5 there, yeah, at -120 or something. And that looked like the best bet of my career because that was the most insane fight you've ever seen, man. AJ Dobson comes out, floors the guy about 4 times in 4 minutes. He gets hit with some huge shots as well. Hashem lands like bombs on his chin. He's on skates. It's an absolutely insane fight. Gets the rear naked choke because he just put up so much damage on his opponent that his opponent basically, just didn't want to be in there anymore. So rear naked choke, tapped out, quick tap there. But AJ, I will say that he looks very athletic. Even in them scrambles, Hashem was hurt, but just the way he moves, you can tell if someone's athletic or unathletic, right? Just the way he moves, he seems very athletic. Seems like he would be hard to take down, not from a technique-based purpose, because we haven't really seen too much technique defense, but just in terms of his body stature, his balance, his strength in the clinch, and his athleticism. It looked like he might be hard to take down. The only other tape I really can see of him is that John Gunther fight. This was back in 2014. And real ones will know John Gunther, yeah? He's a legend on the regional scene. The guy gets smashed every fight. His face goes left, right, sideways, but he comes back and he wins the fight somehow. So I like John Gunther anytime I watch tape on these UFC guys. He's fought a couple in the past. And he beat John Gunther, yeah. He smashed his face to pieces, and John Gunther, lasted like he does. But the fight got stopped at the end of round 1 from a cut. That was an amateur fight. Then they rematched, and Gunther beat AJ Dobson via submission in that second round. Now I can't find that, which is really annoying because I did want to see how that goes down, right? Because Malkoun is going to come out here, try to wrestle like Gunther did, and he's obviously going to go for submission attempts as well because he went for a couple of submissions against Abdul Razak Hassan there. He had one that was fairly tight for a second, but Hassan was able to just kind of, whatever, is able to defend the submission. So I actually favor Dobson a little bit just because I think on the Malkoun side, I just didn't like the way he got melted by Hawes in about 10 seconds. I know fighters can get melted quickly, but it wasn't like they was at range and it was one lucky shot. It was just the way he was fighting was like he was so scared of Hawes, right? And I feel like he's coming up against a very similar archetype to Hawes here in terms of the athleticism, the build, the strength, the pace, the pressure, the way he fights, the reckless abandon. In some of Phil's earlier fights, now he's a bit different because he knows about that chin issue, right? But I feel like if Dobson hits him a couple of times on the chin, it's going to be night-night. So it's hard for me to get behind a side because I do think they could also get out-grappled. I actually like the under. And I may have played the under myself. I didn't get in a line as good as you, but I do like the under because I feel like if Malkoun doesn't get melted, which I am actually predicting to happen in the first round, if he doesn't get melted, then I think he could get a submission if Dobson tires out, So, yeah, I like the under. But as for a money line, I think Dobson will win. I lean Dobson. But I don't really like playing a money line.
I think
Play.
really quick to that point. I was just looking earlier today because I didn't look at the props for this too much. I bet it like a number of weeks ago. Jacob Malkoun's submission is plus 1,000. And I'm already fairly exposed on his money line just because of the odds. I knew it was going to drop. I'm just saying plus 1,000 for his submission prop when it could happen to a late gassed AJ Dobson. I completely understand James's reasoning here. I think there's a good chance that Malkoun could get knocked out in the first round. And if you like the Dobson side, I think that's the way to play it. I forget what his number is for KO1. I think it might be plus 3 something, but that seems kind of decent if you like that side. But Malkoun late submission props or plus 1,000 straight up for submission seems pretty decent to me. But
I'm gonna play that. I'm gonna play that submission, man. I didn't see that for whatever. Sometimes, man, we're scouring and you just one of these props misses. You miss them on the best fight odds, but plus 1,000. If I can even get plus 800 or something, I'm gonna play that because I think Dobson's getting a TKO, but I'm gonna play that submission line because that's off in my opinion. It's
100% it's wide. I had a buddy that had late round props and submission props in the Al Hassan fight, which is pretty damn frustrating that he didn't get it there. I actually played I played Malkoun in that fight at like plus 230, which was kind of absurd. I mean, I know a lot of people were low on him coming in from the Haas fight, and it was hard to take a lot away from his regional tape. And so that was kind of a sketchy thing, but he seemed like he could wrestle. And Al Hassan, I don't think anyone rates super high at all at this point. But yeah, man, this should be a fun one. I think if Malkoun can survive the early onslaught, it could be a good live option too. You could probably get like a plus 250, plus 300 number on him coming after a couple minutes into round 1. But yeah, should be a good one.
I absolutely love that shout. I think that that's a great play. I think that that's a great hedge. If you're on the Dobson side, that's a fucking sensible hedge. If he gasses out here, he's probably getting submitted. So I think that that's just a really smart bet. And if you guys saw me distracted looking over at my computer screen for a second, that's because I was trying to get some down. Now we can continue along. We've got next up in the bantamweight division, a fighter that let me down so badly, Manny Martinez. I really thought he had a gift matchup against Guido Canetti. He's like 40 some years old at bantamweight, and he fumbles the bag, barely wins the fight, looks like crap. Doesn't cash my inside the distance. So really disheartening and showed me that the power didn't necessarily translate as effectively at the UFC level if you're not knocking out 42-year-olds that have been sent flying all over the octagon. So that was a little bit concerning. And on the other side, you got Ronnie the Heat Lawrence, who is a very hyped prospect, and I think for good reason. He's one of these guys who utilizes wrestling and pace as a weapon. And he's not trying to get guys down and control them all the time because that's exhausting. And he instead will opt to pick you up, slam you down, throw a couple clean shots as you stand back up, and then stay on you and keep pressuring you. And a lot of times, because he is comfortable in those exchanges, he can keep shooting the takedowns, firing off attempts, and the other guy is getting more tired than he is. So he doesn't mind picking you up, dumping you, letting you get back up, doing it again. And I think on top of that, he's going to throw a good volume of strikes here. And I think that he is very live to finish this fight late. So I have a couple Hail Mary parlays that have, him finishing late in KO 2 and 3, sub 2 and 3. And I think that both of those are live possibilities. I think round 3 or decisions, also not a terrible play here because I don't see how Manny Martinez wins the minutes of this fight. He is going to be under duress and under a lot of pressure. I think he's going to be fairly KO or bust in the spot. So the line makes sense to me. How do you guys feel? I'm going to kick it to my man Lucrative first.
Yeah, I feel the same. I mean, I feel like Ronnie Lawrence, should win this fight, but I don't want to completely write off Manny's power because I do think Manny has a lot of power in that division. I know it necessarily didn't translate against Guido Canetti, but we have to say that it was his debut. Guido has fought, about 10 times in the UFC. He did almost have Guido out in the first round. Guido looked like he didn't want to be there. He was up against the cage. He got hit with heavy body shots. I thought it was going to be over then. Whatever, Guido survived. He's a veteran at the end of the day. As you said, 40 years old, so he's definitely a veteran. He was able to survive that onslaught. I thought Mana could have had him out in rounds 2 and round 3 as well. Honestly, he just didn't pull the trigger. He had him against the cage multiple times, and he would step back, and commentary said this. And a lot of times we don't agree with the commentary, but a lot of times I do agree with the commentary. I feel like that's overblown a lot of the time. If a commentary keeps on saying something, people just kind of ignore it, commentary talking. But they was actually talking facts there. They were saying that Mana keeps on pushing him against the cage, and he keeps on stepping back. Now, I'm not in there, right? So maybe he was getting countered with shots that didn't seem that heavy from Guido, but they were heavy on his face, right? And he could feel them. I couldn't through the TV screen. So maybe that's why he didn't close distance. But I felt like if he pushed the pace in the second and third rounds, and he wasn't tired, he looked fine, I feel like he could have had Guido out there. I've seen him knock out guys on a regional scene, and it's absolutely brutal. Yes, the knockouts don't translate. He did knock out Ricky Tercios, who is in the UFC now, and that was absolutely brutal knockout. He knocked him out twice in that fight, really. He knocked him down badly, but Ricky's a motherfucker, he's a mad, wily, scrambly fighter, so he was able to get back to his feet. Then he got cleanly knocked out. I do think Mana is very dangerous against anyone he's fighting, right? I just wanted to make the case for Mana a little bit, because that left hook is absolutely, it's a naughty left hook. I think he's got one of the best left hooks, or one of the most powerful left hooks in the bantamweight division, But can he land that left hook at the UFC level? That's completely different. You can have the power, but you might not be able to land it. Against Ronnie Lawrence, a guy who moves as much as he does, a guy who's going to trip takedown, a guy who's going to double leg takedown, a guy who's going to single leg takedown, a guy who's going to body lock takedown, a guy who's going to throw lots of volume out. He's moving left and right. He's super awkward. It's kind of like one of the worst fighters for Mana Martinez to fight, right? Because he wants to be in the pocket range so he can hit heavy shots, right? But he's fighting someone who's kind of the opposite of that. He fights opposite of that. Now, I have seen Ronnie hit a couple of times, but, I don't think his defensive tendencies, are elite from a striking perspective. But at the end of the day, it's an MMA fight, right? You are going to get hit. So, it's not like he's got terrible defense. I think Ronnie's going to probably cover his price tag here just because of the pace, just because of the pressure. Now, in regards to the late round stoppage, I probably might play it as well, depending on the line. If I can get like a round 2 KO, something crazy, round 3 submission, usually when you combine the method of victory and the round, you get like a mad numbers. So yeah, I probably will chuck it myself, just to have a little bit of fun. But I think Mana is very tough. I think he's extremely tough, honestly. I know he got tapped out. Oh, he didn't even tap out, but I know he went out against Draco Rodriguez, but he didn't tap out in that fight. He went to sleep from a triangle, which was tight as fuck, and he stayed in that triangle for a long time. I thought he was going to tap out for a while. He never did. So, and on the regional scene, I've seen him weather through storms. I've seen him be taken down before, which is not good in this fight. So I think he's really, really tough. And Lawrence isn't like this out-and-out finisher. Lawrence will grind you out to a decision. So I'm not going to be heavy on these Lawrence finishing props. I'm actually more leaning to the Lawrence decision line, but I do think he probably covers his price tag unless he gets knocked out by one of them left hooks. So yeah, I'm on the Lawrence side, as everyone will be.
Cheers. Bo, how about you, brother?
Yeah, man, I think you covered that pretty well. I think Lawrence is going to drown him here. I think if you like Mana, playing him KO1, I think it was plus 1,200 or something. If you like Mana at all, I think that's a pretty good number to play his KO. Probably think that's most of his win condition. I played Ronnie money line, and I have a pretty decent look on Ronnie's submission. I think 750 is way too wide for Ronnie's submission. I think it should be a hell of a lot closer to KO. If you watch his last couple of fights, he's started to integrate a lot more front headlock series stuff, looking for arm triangles, starting to kind of go to guillotine setups from Mount. I think the probability that Ronnie taps him out in 2 or 3 is pretty high. And I don't understand why 750 is so far away from his KO number. So I like Ronnie's submission here. I think he's getting better in that regard. He's a fantastic chain wrestler, relentless on takedowns. But to James's point, he can be hit, and Mana hits hard. I think the look in the Guido Canetti fight was pretty rough in the second and third round, but he could have kind of taken that thing away, but kind of let it stay close. And against a guy like Ronnie, who's going to keep on grabbing body locks and go take the back, he's relentless with takedowns, dude. I like Ronnie's grappling a lot. And I know he's not some crazy jiu-jitsu guy who has insane submission skills, but I think this could be the one, man. I think 750 is way too wide for submission. I think it should be a lot closer to like 300, 350. So I took a small shot there, and then I have him in a parlay with Morozov, which I hardly ever do parlays, but I like that a lot. So yeah, I think Ronnie covers his price, and I think he finds a submission after a couple rounds.
Just from what you said there, I can see the submission in round 2, 2,700, 2,200 bet online. Submission in round 3, 2,800, 3,600. I feel like, submissions can happen at any time, but I feel like if it is going to be a submission, it's going to be more of a grinding-based submission when Mana's tired, because I really do think Mana's a real tough kid. I know he got submitted in the first by Draco, but it was like he got caught in a transition. It was a little bit awkward the way it happened. I don't think Ronnie's that slick. So round 2, round 3 submission at 22.38, it could be a good play.
I love it. I'm on some of those already. I'm have them in some DGen parlays, and I think Ronnie Nurmagomedov will get it done. As Prodigy said, round 3 or decision. I really like that look. Going to have a little bit of coverage on round 2 in all likelihood, because I will curse myself if I only have the round 3 coverage and then round 2 hits. Just want to shout out a couple people from the chat. Grateful Dude said this is a fun card from a betting perspective. Absolutely it is. Asked if I'm going to UFC Columbus. We'll see how we do on Saturday, brother. If it goes well, maybe I will be. Never bet against a Nurmagomedov, says Owen. Great point. And Gary says, let's go. Absolutely. Got 50 people rocking live with us right now, 10:45 in the East. Appreciate each and every one of you guys. If you haven't already, go ahead and get subscribed. We'll get right over that number, and I'll be posting my bets tomorrow at 12 o'clock noon. Either way, we can move along. We got another one of these lower level fights on the card. The Israel Adesanya, I don't even know what to call it. Cans hanging off the back of the car or something. We got Carlos Ullberg, and he's taking on Fabio Cherant. Buffalo, New York, stand up. Fabio Cherant in the building, trying to represent. Had a tough go at it so far in the UFC. Didn't look so bad in his last fight until it all went so wrong so fast. And I think that that's very liable to happen here. But I don't know that I have any interest in betting on Carlos Ullberg at this kind of distinction. I know a lot of people are on that line this week. Just doesn't have a lot of experience. Doesn't have a lot of tape that I feel like is trustworthy for this fight. And if Fabio Cherant has half a brain, he's going to come out here with his wrestling shoes, his singlet, his headgear, and he's going to just try and grapple this guy relentlessly and test that cardio, which we have seen fall off the cliff in the fight against Kennedy. So I think in all likelihood, Carlos Ullberg wins this fight and wins it by knockout. But I just don't want to bet on either of these fighters. I don't feel like either of them are very trustworthy. And the one who I think is going to win, I'd have to lay serious chalk. So it's a pass for me. Bo, how do you feel about this one?
Yeah, no, that's a totally fair point. I'm in a similar boat. I think Cherant's a better live option than he is pre-fight. He has a hard time seeing strikes coming in kind of all of his fights. Oh, dude, Aaron Watershow's hilarious on Twitter. I like that dude. But yeah, I think Cherant's going to struggle here, especially early. If you watch the first minute of Ullberg and Kennedy and you told me that Kennedy knocks him out in that fight, I mean, you would have called me crazy. But Ullberg, I mean, dude, he's a pretty decent kickboxer. It's not super high level, but, he throws he works down and up pretty well. I think Cherant's leg's going to get chewed up pretty bad. But I'm just not trusting his cardio, and I do not like his striking defense at all. He has his hands down, doesn't really move his head. He's super confident in the pocket. But, I mean, Fabio Cherant, I think he's a funny dude, man, but he can kind of crack. And if I'm not trusting to lay Ullberg at minus 260 at all. And who knows, man, there's some regional tape out there of Cherant wrestling. So maybe we see D1 Buffalo here. And he tries to grind on him a little bit. But, yeah, I'm not trusting either of these guys at this price. I think the over 1.5 is slightly intriguing. But I'm going to stay off of it just because there's a good chance Cherant just gets popped in the first round. But yeah, man, I think it's a pretty easy pass fight for me. I think some people who got in on Ullberg earlier are sitting pretty. But yeah, I don't trust him at all. And I hope Buffalo wins. I'm rooting for him.
It'd be kind of cool. It'd be kind of cool, James.
It'd be kind of cool.
James is like, it'd be not cool at all. Tell us what you think about this one, brother.
Yeah, man, I might be a little bit biased, but I think Ullberg's going to fuck this guy up, man, honestly. I mean, Cherant really, the guy's not a good MMA fighter, in my opinion. No, he doesn't really let his hands go. What does Cherant do well? Like, honestly, what does Cherant... No, tell me, what does Cherant do well?
He goes 5 rounds with Myron Dennis in LFA.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't see what he's going to do to Ullberg here. Obviously, Ullberg is grappling every day. You know, he's defending takedowns against the wall in his gym every single day. I don't think Cherant's this great wrestler either. Man, I don't know, man. The only thing I will say is that coming off a fight like Ullberg had in his last fight out, I think there's some credence to the over 1.5. I wouldn't be playing it if the fight didn't go like how it did last time. But I think there is credence to that at plus money because Cherant's low volume, right? He's low pace, doesn't really like getting hit. So he stays on the outside and he tries to pitter-patter. Carlos Ullberg in general is a technical fighter. I know you guys have seen him against Kennedy and he looks like this nuts fighter who just just fights back and forth, crazy pace. But that's not really how he fights. He's a lot more technical. He's a lot more similar to Israel than he is to Blood Diamond, put it that way, right? He'll stay on the outside. He's very long. He'll throw head kicks. He'll throw a lot of teeps. Very good teeper. So he'll try to keep you at range. And Cherant will stay at range because he doesn't really like getting hit, in my opinion, right? So I feel like this could be kind of a slow-paced affair, and it could creep over to 1.5, especially that Carlos gassed out badly in his last fight. So coming into this fight, he's not going to want to lose 2 in a row. He realizes that at the UFC level, these fighters are potentially a little bit more tough. So he might not go crazy like he did in that Kennedy fight. And Kennedy's a mad guy anyway. He'll walk forward with his hands up and just hit you in the pocket, where Cherant won't really do that, you know? I don't think Cherant's going to be able to take the shots Kennedy did, but I also think that he's not going to be there to get hit with the shots as much as Kennedy did. So I don't mind the over 1.5. It is a bit sweaty because I think that Ullberg technically is, 10 levels above Cherant, which means that a KO can come at any point when the level difference in the striking is so much. But yeah, I think Ullberg fucks him up, whatever. Decision, knockout. But I do think Ullberg beats this guy easily, really.
And I'm seeing that the over 1.5 is at plus money as well. So if you want to get down on that, I think it's as high as plus 120, plus 110 in a lot of places. So I think that's an interesting look. And yeah, I think a lot of people are going to be looking to bet the under, but that might be a sharp angle. And I will definitely be taking a closer look at that myself. Bo, you had some thoughts?
Yeah, really quick. I came into this from not taping it, just kind of thinking I was going to bet Cherant here. One thing that James said, he doesn't have the volume to offset any sort of cardio issues that Ullberg might have. And that's the thing. If you're looking for a guy who's going to beat a guy who might be gassing out, he needs to have volume to come back at him. He doesn't do that. Like you said, he's pretty scared to get hit. It's not like we've seen him wrestle anyone like in super fantastic fashion. And the over 1.5 could be sweaty, but I think that's the angle if you're going to play anything here. And maybe a live option, but who knows, man. I wish Cherant had a little bit more volume. I might trust him here, but Ullberg, I think there's a pretty good possibility he comes with a little bit different of approach. Taking his time a little bit more. He's pretty damn good. He just kind of went a little bit too crazy there and kind of paid for it late. But outside of a little bit of defensive issues that I don't love, his tendencies with keeping his hands down, not moving his head in the pocket a ton. He's a pretty solid kickboxer, man. So I guess we'll see, but I wish there's more volume coming back from Cherant, but yeah, pretty good fight.
If he got knocked out by the water buffalo, it would just be scenes, dude. It would be scenes across America. Daniel Edwards says, in fairness, Cherant is good at getting finished. That is a fair point. Also, we got the Gombis Pain Train in the chat, says the boys. Bo, you got to play water buffalo. That is your guy. So, hey, maybe a degenerate sprinkle if Bo's up on the night on the water buffalo.
Yeah, dude, if I cash my first couple, I'm throwing some money on Buffalo in some regard. Dude, give me Buffalo submission. Give me Buffalo submission for all of it. But
I love it, dude.
That is my guy.
I think that's his best chance. He's got a couple guillotines over, local school teachers and things like that on the regional scene. He's doing okay, man. Next up, guys, a fight that I think the submission is very live. We got Kyler Phillips taking on Marcelo Rojo. Marcelo Rojo, he might look familiar to you if you did the tape on John Castaneda last week, because John Castaneda beat this guy up in Combate. Great fight. Both guys were game, competitive, threw a lot of strikes, but Rojo has this tendency, in my opinion, to break down the stretch in a fight. But I also think that he can be audited in the grappling department. I think that when somebody was willing to engage in a brawl, he looks very good. But people can switch it up on him, and people have submitted him in early in fights. They've submitted him later in fights. So I just think bottom line is he's breakable. Kyler Phillips, I think, is a superior grappler in the matchup. He's been talking. If you guys watch the UFC's official weigh-in show, he said, Daniel, should I be doing Greco-Roman takedowns, freestyle? And he's basically talking about the fact that he wanted to wrestle in this fight. I think that would be wise. I think that he doesn't need to waste as much energy. Being a dynamo on the feet, he could control guys more efficiently with the grappling. So I'm excited to see how this fight plays out, but I think that, like you had mentioned before, you thought the KO and the subline should be more closely correlated. And right now the subline is like plus 550, whereas the KO line is much shorter on Kyler Phillips. So I think that the Kyler Phillips early sub prop at plus 750 on FanDuel is a good look, rounds 1 and 2. And then I think, plus 550 on the sub, not a bad way to play this, and not a bad way to get a short price on a point of advantage on a minus 400 favorite that I wouldn't feel comfortable laying on the money line because of his cardio issues. So that was how I targeted this fight. I think the under 2.5 is interesting as well. I will probably get down on that if the number's good. Bo, how do you feel about this fight?
Yeah, I think you covered that pretty well. I actually haven't played the sub yet, but I don't see any reason not to, man. He has such a distinct grappling advantage here. And clearly the easiest path is take him down. And Rojo, I think I like Rojo just because I think he's tough, but I don't think he's on this level, man, especially in the grappling department. It should look pretty easy for Kyler, especially once he gets in on him. So I think the sub is a better way to play it. I mean, I have no interest in laying money line on Phillips at minus 400. I actually thought he won his last, or not won. I think at worst his last fight was a draw. I didn't have any money on it, but I thought, I don't know how the fuck you can score that first round not a 10-8. Like, I thought that was a pretty much as clear as a draw gets. But yeah, he gassed out there. You'd have to think he takes a little bit more of a conservative approach here. But yeah, I mean, neither of the money lines are very interesting. Kyler should probably maul him on the ground, dude. And whether it's a KO or submission, I think you just got to kind of pick your poison there. But plus 550 is still available on FanDuel, and I might have to get in on that. So yeah, fun fight. I think Kyler probably bounces back here, but submission is not a bad look.
I love it. And dude, I think that my Halley and Paiva, money line and by decision tickets disagree with you completely.
Yeah.
But my rational thinking brain is like, yeah, of course, that was a completely obvious draw, and it should have been scored accordingly. On top of that, this is a guy who has a win over Song Yadong, who I think is going to be a staple in the top 15 for a little bit. He's very athletic. He hits with a lot of power. He's a dynamic striker in his own right. And Kyler Phillips won that fight cleanly. So I think that, Kyler's got a lot of skill and talent. Lucrative, how do you feel about this matchup?
Yeah, first of all, that was a 10-8 all day. The reason why it weren't scored a 10-8, right, is because when Phillips hits him with that mad elbow with about 15 seconds to go, he comes over the top, hits him with an elbow. He goes for a takedown right after, and the judges, I'm pretty certain that the judges thought that Paiva getting knocked down, because Paiva was on his way down, right, from the elbow. He was going to go on his ass, but Kyler Phillips goes in for a takedown straight after. So the judges score it as a takedown, but in reality, it was a knockdown disguised as a takedown. So I think the judges just half did and realized, we're watching it through the camera, but they got to look through the cage up. They don't know what they're doing at the best of the time. So especially when you put them behind like a cage and they're looking through, it's a recipe for disaster, So obviously that was a good bet though, regardless of the 10-8. That was a great bet by you betting on Paiva at like plus 250, plus 300, whatever. So it doesn't even matter. But I think Kyler Phillips should be undefeated in the UFC, because of that. That should have been scored a 10-8. Was scored a 10-8 by one guy. But the other two judges didn't see it that way. In this fight, I think that Kyler Phillips is going to win in round 1 or 2. I actually spoke about this on my own podcast. This was the segment I did called The Most Exciting Fight on the Card. And I said this one because Kyler Phillips, he's always in exciting fights. The guy bounces in and out of range, karate, point kickboxing style, but he'll also throw in takedowns and he'll also throw in taekwondo strikes. So he's a very dynamic fighter. One of the most dynamic fighters in the UFC in terms of mixing styles together, right? We don't see it that often that a fighter has so many different styles, so many different martial arts combined to one. That aggressively anyway. And I think in this fight, It's funny because Kyla's a bit of a gasser, right? And Rojo tends to get finished late. I think he got finished in the first round once. I think his other 4 finishes come at the end of the second, the end of the third rounds. His last 3 finishes that he got beaten all come late in the third round. So the guy usually gets grinded down, attritional volume. Kyla Phillips is not going to grind you down. Kyla Phillips is going to one-shot you or take you down and submit you early. So it's a bit of a weird one because like we got one fighter who starts hard, but one fighter who fades, right? So it's a little bit of a mix and match there. But because of the skill differences so much, I do think that Kyla Phillips probably gets him out of there early. But I have no interest playing Kyla Phillips' money line. Minus 450, no thank you. I would be taking a shot on Rojo here just because Phillips is a gasser at the end of the day. That's how he got beat against Paiva. That's how he got beat against Victor Henry, the GOAT. Shout out to Victor Henry because, you know, what he did the other day was great. So I think Kyla Phillips is a little bit, maybe being a little bit overvalued in terms of the money line just because he will gas out. And I know Rojo gets stopped late, but he does also come on late. He's a weird fighter, Rojo. You know, I feel like his cardio looks fine. He looks tough, but then he just gets finished late in fights, you know. Against Charles Jourdain, he wasn't gassing that bad in round 3. He just got fucked up in round 3. Against John Castaneda, he wasn't gassing bad in round 3. He just got taken down and grinded in round 2 and round 3 and got caught with a submission, you know. So he's a bit of a strange fighter. But because of the skill gap so much, I do think Phillips will get a stoppage. I would be playing Rojo if Phillips had no grappling upside. If Phillips didn't shoot takedowns, I'll be playing Rojo because I do think that in the second round and third round comes, I think Rojo's going to be pressuring Phillips. And I think Phillips is going to start to gas, but he has the takedowns and the grappling to lean on. And just like he did with Song was coming on hard in the second and third. He just got taken down and controlled when Phillips needed it. So, yeah, I think Phillips probably gets an early stoppage in this one.
That's the hope, my brother. I am on Phillips sub. I'm on Phillips sub 2. I'm on Phillips sub 1 and 2. And I'm on a little bit of Phillips inside the distance in those long shot parlays because I did want a little bit of insurance in case he gets that knockout. I think that Kyler Phillips is the much better fighter here. Rojo, I think, is a fun fighter. I think he's got some upside as an action fighter, and he can storm back late, to James's point. But I think that's what he's going to be relying on in this matchup. I think that's why the money line is so wide. I think early rounds go to Kyler Phillips at a pretty alarming rate. So with that being said, guys, we can move along to the next fight on the card here. And this is one that is probably the talk of the week on Twitter. We have people lining up very strongly on both sides, and a lot of sharp opinions I respect on both sides. So Roxanne Modafferi versus Casey O'Neill. Who's got a hot take they want to get off their chest? Oh, my gosh. All right, Bo, it is.
I think anyone who's a capper who's laying Casey O'Neill money line, it's a money line or inside the distance about as fucking square as they can get. So we're going to take a girl, Roxy, who's been fighting top 10 competition pretty much for the last 8 to 10 years, is going to get finished for the first time in 9 years by Casey O'Neill. Sure, it could happen, but you're playing a plus 200 price on that. And anyone who's laying minus 400 on Casey, I really don't understand it. I think she's pretty much gotten by in the UFC. I'm not trying to make a case that Casey isn't good. I like her as a prospect. I think it's cool. I think it's fun that she finishes fights. She's super aggressive. She's pretty good at jiu-jitsu on top when she gets there. I don't think she's a fantastic wrestler. I don't think she's going to be able to bully Roxanne like she has been the other girls. And I think when it really comes down to it, this price is just way too wide, man. I can't imagine laying Casey O'Neill at this price. People are throwing her in parlays. We're playing against Roxy. She's 40 years old. It's a retirement fight. She's going to get outstruck and outgrappled, but I don't think Casey has an extremely distinct advantage in really any regard. I don't see Casey coming forward and just absolutely fucking up Roxanne on the feet. She comes forward and she's aggressive with striking, but she doesn't have very good striking defense. I don't think she's a fantastic wrestler. I think she's really gotten off bullying girls. I think she's going to have a hard time with Roxy down the stretch. And people can laugh because Roxy's kind of a meme at this point. I mean, you look at her record, she's like 25-20 or something. But I think she's much higher, much more high-level experience. And I think she's going to have what happens when Roxy gets on top, man. Roxy's pretty heavy on top. We saw Antonina Shevchenko, who I actually had by KO in that fight against Casey. She had her in a position on the ground, and Antonina, I'm sorry, is a pretty horrendous grappler. And she had her in a position there. She lost a scramble to Antonina and ended up on her bottom and was taking some shots. It's not going to be a pretty fight. If Roxy wins this fight, it is not going to be pretty. She's probably going to get tagged a little bit. But I like the price on Roxanne Modafferi, man. I'm sending it. I'm not going huge, but I took a little bit of plus 315. I understand people wanted to pass on it, but I cannot imagine playing Casey O'Neill at this price. So I'll kick it off to you guys. But yeah, there's my take.
I agree with a lot of your sentiments. I'm going to kick it to James before I let what I think out of the bag.
Yeah, shout out to Lags because it is MMA Twitter's main event. And it's funny, like us all using Twitter, there's always 1 or 2 fights every week that's like, the topic of discussion. And they're always the maddest fights, like Menafield versus Knight or some mad fight like O'Neill minus 400 against Roxanne. It's just funny going back and forth, seeing people planting their flag and that. Look, man, I'm not going to really say too much in this fight. I don't really have interest in betting Roxy in a retirement fight. We have to mention that this is a retirement fight, right? I think in MMA, if anyone's having a retirement fight, I think it should be capped into the line. And I think you should know that before you're betting it, because I haven't done the research. I haven't done the data and looked into it, but I was speaking to Luke, sparring with Reality in the DMs, and he was saying, and I was agreeing, he was saying, like, who has ever won their retirement fight? And honestly, obviously there's going to be a couple of fighters, right? But I'm pretty sure, without doing the research, that most people going categorically saying, I'm retiring 100% after this fight. Not retirement talks, like 1 or 2 fights, but this is my last fight ever. Goodbye. Most of the time, it doesn't end well, man. I don't think that's a hot take. I think that's pretty true. I will have to do the research, but I'm pretty sure that is true. Coming up against someone like Casey, who is such a fucking, motherfucker. She walks forward. She doesn't stop. That's a terrible fight to take in your retirement fight. If you fight in a retirement fight, you want some low volume fighter who's not really going to make you question your retirement or whatnot. But Casey's a bad matchup for someone having their retirement fight, right? So I just wanted to mention a retirement piece. In terms of the matchup, look, honestly, I don't think it's minus 400 matchup. I mean, Casey should be favored because of her pace, tenacity, her youth, and Roxy's just not that good, I feel like I got a decent read on Casey because I bet Casey in a debut against Shana Dobson at like plus 140 or something, plus 150. Which is, hilarious because Dobson's a really bad fighter and Casey's a pretty good fighter, She finished her there. Then she fights Antonina Procopio. I didn't bet that fight past it. A lot of people were heavy on Procopio. Obviously, Casey wins that fight there. I mean, Liam obviously must have had some money on Procopio there, like most people did. And then in her last fight, I had Casey O'Neill in round 3. Just a little sprinkle, but I had him round 3. She ends up getting the stoppage 12 seconds before round 3 in round 2. So I feel like I'm pretty high on Casey, or I'm higher than most on Casey because I've bet her, right? And most people have faded her. In this fight, I'm definitely not betting her, but I'm probably not going to fade her. I just have no interest in playing Roxy. Roxy, if she gets on top, yeah, it definitely could be interesting. But I think that because she's so young, she's so wily, Casey I'm talking about, she just doesn't stop moving. I think she's going to be able to scramble, get on top. And the only bet that interests me in this fight, honestly, is maybe like Casey TKO or something, like plus 400, plus 500. I know Roxy, and I'm not playing it because Roxy's never been finished in the UFC, or I don't know, 10 years ago she did or whatnot, right? So that's why I'm not playing it. I never like to bet on bets that haven't happened before. But I do think that Casey is going to put heavy damage on Roxy the later this fight goes. But look, anyone who's taking a shot, Bo, shout out to you. Anybody taking a shot on Roxy, shout out to them because I understand it, plus 350 or whatever. Casey doesn't look that good. Me personally, I'm not doing it, but good luck if you are doing it, It's like the people when they was betting Mike Hamill against Umar Nurmagomedov at like plus 600. I'm like, look, shout out to you lot because I respect it. I'm not going to do it, but I respect it. Same thing here. I respect it, but I'm not doing it.
Fair play, brother.
Shout out to Mike Hamill, too. That's my guy, bro. I fucking love Mike Hamill.
Hell yeah.
Hamill's a legend, bro. He's won me a lot of money.
Bro, he was plus 180 his last 2 fights in Bellator. He's the best fighter who's close to 500 record. That's my guy, bro.
Legend.
Guys, in this fight, I feel like I look at the fight and I see a girl who is, a little bit soft run through the UFC so far, right? Like she beats Shayna Dobson, no longer with the company, not a very good fighter, as you mentioned, James. Then she gets the win over Lara Procopio. That was not an easy win, right? I thought she lost the first round pretty clean there. And then Lara Procopio is telling her corner, I do not feel good. In between rounds, like she's like, I feel sick. And she goes out there and completely collapses utterly and gets finished. And I think that was, a little bit of a strange result. I don't think that happens 10 times out of 10 if they run that fight back. I think Lara Procopio still could be favored in that fight, though she lost her job with the organization for that performance. So then we look at, Antonina Shevchenko is like one of the most, celebrated fades in the UFC. It seems like everybody loves to fade her and tell her she's the worst sister and she stinks. So now we're saying that all that as a resume, plus like getting knocked out on the amateurs, which, it's the amateurs. It's not a huge deal. But then she fought, I believe, with her father's promotion. So it's like she's just had a pretty soft run in her career. And now she's taking a step up in competition, and it's right place, right time. And that's why the UFC is giving her the fight, right? It's a retirement fight for Roxanne. But I do think that Roxanne, physically didn't look horrible to me on the scale. It looks like she's prepared for the fight. I think that, when I went back and watched the footage, I expected her to be worse. I actually expected her to look worse. Everybody talks about how she sucks. And I was like, listen, she's not athletic. She's not dynamic. She's no Kyler Phillips, let's say. But I do think that, her fundamentals are okay. She throws, decent strikes. She just gets taken down pretty readily. She doesn't have great hips because she's not that strong. So somebody could just barrel through her. I think that in this fight, she's probably going to end up in grappling transitions, but she's the much more schooled grappler, I would think. So I do think she's going to be live here. I think she's going to have to absorb a lot of damage to win the fight. I think it's going to be greasy decision or submission for Roxy if she wins this fight. I think otherwise she's pretty much drawn dead. I do think the O'Neal KO is a little bit live here because we've kind of seen fighters that are preparing for retirement. Like Ali Aquinta said, he's like, yeah, I felt a couple of those shots and I just was like, nah, I'm good. Like, I think that, it is possible that if Roxy faces a lot of early adversity here, that she just checks out mentally. And I think that the fight that somebody brought up was Miesha Tate and Marion Renault. I think that's a decent analog for what you could see, where Marion Renault is historically tough, durable, but not altogether, as skilled and just kind of, gave up a little bit down the stretch there when the fight wasn't going her way. So my man Prodigy in the comments says one last ride for Queen Roxy. So shout out to him. Pepe says, I bet Casey against Dobson and Procopio, but I'm going Roxy here. So got a couple of people riding with Roxy here in this retirement fight, but we'll just point out the sharp money distribution right now still has Casey O'Neal just ever so slightly in the lead for whatever that's worth to you guys. Now, with that being said, we can move to the next fight here. Kind of a tricky fight to break down, in my opinion. You've got ancient Andrei Arlovski, legend of the game, lots of fights, but really getting up there in age for my liking. And on the other side, you got Jared Vanderaa, not the world's highest level fighter, but a lot of the struggles that we've seen him have on tape in the UFC have come against grapplers and people committed to wrestling him, getting on top of him. So I do think that this is an interesting style matchup because we get to see a little bit more from Vanderaa here. James, how do you feel about this matchup, my friend?
Bro, if Arlovski loses this fight, man, the guy should retire. Arlovski beats these guys every day and twice on Sundays, honestly, man. What's Vanderaa going to do? He has to hit him with a big shot, in my opinion. Arlovski's 43. So when you're betting a 43-year-old, when you're talking about a 43-year-old, there's always a chance they fall off the cliff, right? There's two things in this fight, in my opinion. Andrei Arlovski is 43, and at any point he can fall off the cliff. And Andrei Arlovski, in my opinion, is very fragile. He looks to quit in fights, in my opinion. And if he gets hit hard, he definitely looks to quit in fights. Vanderaa hits hard. Vanderaa puts the pace and pressure. But I don't know, man. I don't have much to tell you. Andrei Arlovski is much faster than Jared Vanderaa with his strikes, which is hilarious. The guy's 50 years old, and he's much faster than Jared Vanderaa. Vanderaa, he's not going to be able to wrestle Arlovski. Arlovski should be on his bike, pitter-patter, jab, jab, 1-2. You know what Arlovski has done for the past, 5 fights, whatever. He's like 5-1 in his last 6 fights or something. this is a step up in competition that Jared Vanderaa has never faced. Who has Jared Vanderaa beat? Justin Tafa. He's beat Justin Tafa. You know, Justin Tafa stands in the middle of the octagon and throws haymakers. You know what I mean? Like, Andrei Arlovski fights the opposite to that, right? I don't know, man. Arlovski, if he loses this fight, he maybe should just retire, you know, because he's 43 years old and he's going to have to retire someday. And I just think that he beats these guys. He's proven that he beats these guys whenever he wants to. You know, Vanderaa not on the level. He's 43. Maybe he gets hit and he quits. You know, that is potential. But I like Arlovski in this fight. And until Arlovski shows me that he is going to lose to this level. I know he lost to Walt Harris. That was a no contest. Like, he is a little bit, dodgy sometimes. Walt Harris is not a good fighter, but I don't know, man. I think Andrei Arlovski is going to put on a clinical vet performance here.
Fair play. And my man Chris in the comments says Arlovski maintains rage, uses footwork to outpoint him. Think Arlovski has enough in the tank. He's really echoing a lot of your sentiments there, James. And my man Uncle Wheezy says, what's up, fellas? Three kings at work here. Let's stack cash tickets like flapjacks at UFC 271. Can't say it better myself. Bo, how do you feel about this one, my friend?
Yeah, man, I mostly agree with James here. Arlovski's been one of those guys similar to Brunson, who we'll talk about in a sec. He's just been a fucking money train over the last couple of years. Like, what was he, plus 200 to Felipe Lins? There's just been some lines with bookmakers completely disrespecting Arlovski because he's one of those guys who's getting up in age. I just think Arlovski is kind of that perfect case of, I don't know if you even want to call it a career resurgence, because he's been fighting at such a high level for so long. But unless you're giving him a guy who's going to out-technique him in a striking fight, he's pretty damn reliable, man. And he hasn't slowed down too much with his old age. He kind of changed the way he fought from so many years where he fought uber aggressive and pushing on guys to fighting more relaxed back in the pocket and just reading fights. Arlovski's it's just such a cool case of a guy who in his old age almost got better technically. And I agree with James saying that, if he loses a fight to Vanderaa, he might as well retire. But I wouldn't be that shocked if Arlovski loses this fight down the stretch just based on volume. And I don't think Vanderaa is technically not even close to on his level, but he throws a lot of strikes. And it's hard to take the Tafa fight into too much account because Tafa, no disrespect, is kind of a bum. But who knows, man? I think people who bet Vanderaa at plus 190 or whatever, kind of it's close to open, not a bad line. I understand the angle on that. I think Arlovski at 65%, 60% is about right. You can make a case for it being higher than that, but I'm surprised at myself for not betting Arlovski here. It's honestly one of those spots. I've bet him in pretty much all of his last fights. I couldn't really tell you why I didn't. I think minus 150 is maybe a little bit short, but I'm not going to play it. I was kind of hoping the odds were going to keep going down from 130. I was sitting like 133 for a little bit, and I was interested in there, but didn't do it. Arlovski 3 decision probably isn't a bad look. But yeah, I think James makes some great points. I think the only way Vanderaa is really winning this is just based off volume down the stretch. But it's a good fight, man. Arlovski just, again, such an impressive case of kind of changing the way he fought in his old age. So pretty cool. But yeah, rooting for Andre here.
I hear everything that you're saying, and I think we're just going to have an ever so slight disagreement here, right? And I think that Andrei Arlovski, I understand, how he wins this fight, right? And I did bet on him against Carlos Felipe last time out, so I think that there's merit to Andrei Arlovski winning decisions over low-level UFC fighters. It's just something that he does, but I did think that I saw a little bit of that writing on the wall in the Carlos Felipe fight in the sense that he was slowing down the stretch. And Carlos Felipe's not really a big hitter. He doesn't have that crazy volume either. He throws, a decent amount of punches, but he's really a basic fighter. He's like a primary boxer, doesn't really do anything else. And just like being there, being in the fight, staying in the fight was enough to make him competitive down the stretch there. Made me feel a little bit greasy about my ticket. And, as James mentioned, he's close to the edge of the cliff. I like to think of it as a trap door where, it's just one day everything's going along and then it falls out from underneath them, like a false floor. And I think that Andrei Arlovski, it looks like the obvious side here, but there's been money and money and money and money and money pushing this Vanderaa line down. And I think in part it's because Vanderaa, he doesn't look great physically, but he's got weight, he's got mass, he's got some size to him. He's not the most powerful striker in the world, but to Bo's point, he's going to throw reliably a ton of volume. Arlovsky's not really a guy who's going to close you down and clinch with you all that much and close down the range. He will a little bit, but oftentimes, like you said, he's on the back foot, he's skirting around. And I think it's possible that Bandera can knock him out in this fight. Bandera is not a very heavy hitter, but he's a 200-something pound man throwing punches over and over and over at a 43-year-old who may get too tired to hold his hands up over the course of the fight as well. So I think that there's some reasons to like Bandera here. I don't really love the money line price at this point. It's gotten quite short. But I do think that Bandera earlier in the week, I get why people were playing that line. I get if people want to buy back on Arlovsky now. Personally, I have no interest with the huge age gap here. Fighters over 38 years of age, their chance of getting knocked out skyrockets. Andre Arlovsky's been knocked out a million times. I know Jared Bandera doesn't hit that hard, but at 43 years old, you don't have to. I think that any shot that he throws here could clip him, and he's going to be reliable to throw a shit ton. So I think that Bandera KO at plus 420 is not a bad look if you want to get involved small in this fight. But otherwise, I don't have strong conviction here. Don't have any money down, but DGen parlays, might have featured a little bit of that Jared KO, that Jared KO won. I just have a bad feeling about this fight for Andre, and it could look like a vet lesson, but I just have a feeling that the bottom is going to fall out on Andre Arlovsky sooner rather than later, and I kind of want to be there on that KO line when it happens. So
I just want to add this here because I bet Arlovsky in this fight, right? Because I've been in the game for a long time betting, and I realized that my gut feelings, most of the time I ignore them. I definitely listen to my feelings and how I feel about the fight. It's more of like a overbranching sense of where to bet. But the gut feelings, like, I have a bad feeling or a good feeling about this. And I'm not talking about your one. I'm talking about my one because I also have a bad feeling. I just usually ignore them these days, right? Because I do have a little bit of a weird feeling about this Arlovsky fight. You said the exact same thing. You have a bad feeling. And Bo said the exact same thing because he said he was going to bet Arlovsky and he doesn't know why he's not doing it, right? So we all have a bad feeling about this fight for some reason. I don't know why. I just wanted to put that one out there. I just felt it's weird to me that we all have the same weird feeling. I am ignoring the feeling and betting Arlovsky, but it's just awkward that we all have like a similar feeling there.
Absolutely. And against Jared Bandera, who I'm sure none of us rate as like the world's, next up and coming heavyweight prospect. It's just like, I feel like the writing was a little bit on the wall in that Philippe fight because Philippe's not a big power guy or a big cardio guy either. It's just, I don't know. I think Bandera with the volume could pose some problems here with a split decision optic and also with the potential for a knockout. Bo, you had something on the way out on this one?
Yeah, not too much else. It's just, it is kind of a weird fight. I kind of went into it thinking I might bet Andre, and then I'm pretty comfortable passing at this, but I do understand the reasoning for playing both sides. For getting Andre at minus 130, minus 140 makes sense. For getting Bandera at plus 170, plus 190, I understand people playing both sides. So I'm happy to sit back and just kind of enjoy it and maybe get a live bet down if someone's looking like the side. So good fight though.
I love it. All right, next up, guys, we've got a fight in the lightweight division. I know that this is one that Bo likes, and this is a fight that I like as well. I think that Bobby King Green is pretty criminally underrated in the UFC. I think that, he does get a lot of shit for his antics and for some of the optics of his fighting style. But I think when you go back and watch the tape, you see that Bobby Green is a very competent fighter. He can fight out of both stances. He can switch stances. He could slip shots in return. He can wrestle, in a very underrated fashion. When he decides to wrestle, he gets on top of people pretty routinely. And he can create problems for them. He's been able to wrestle guys as solid as Clay Guida in the UFC. And I think people kind of forget about this pandemic run he went on. A lot of people talk about the Thiago Moises fight. They don't talk about the fact that it was his fourth fight in a calendar year during the pandemic, and he still should have won the fight. And he gets jobbed out close. By the way, other competitive lightweights like Alexander Hernandez, who we're going to talk about as well on this card, got jobbed out by Thiago Moises on the feet because the guy gets a lot of crap for not being the world's most technical striker. And he's not, but he's got some power. He's got some natural power and a willingness to throw. He's decently durable. It cost him in his last fight trying to rely on that durability. But I think that overall, Moises is not a horrible fighter, and Bobby Green should have won that fight. He was competitive, won 2 judges' scorecards for that 3rd round against Fiziev. And people keep telling me that Bobby Green doesn't hurt people and can't hurt people in his fights. And I'm like, that's just not true. Lando Venado was on ice skates, and he got dropped twice against Bobby Green in the rematch. On top of that, I thought Fiziev, his eyes got wide. He was not happy with some of those shots, and he was reacting poorly in that 3rd round. And that's somebody who I rate tremendously on the feet, somebody who knocked out Brad Riddell in a stand-up kickboxing match. It's like Bobby Green, I just think that he's much more seasoned as a competitor. My only concern here is that he gets knocked out. Nasrat Haqparast has fast hands. He's got a good left hand. He's got a pretty underrated, in my opinion, right hook that closes the door when people try and slip the left hand. But overall, he throws most of his strikes from the left side. And he gets on the back foot in a lot of his fights. I think that in this fight, he's going to try and be on the front foot, but Bobby Green plays off the back foot pretty well. Like that's where he likes to be, is somebody throwing at him slipping, returning, countering. And I think that a lot of times in this fight, he's going to trade 1 shot on the Nasrat side for 2 shots from Bobby Green. And as long as he doesn't get knocked out in this fight, I think that he should win it pretty comfortably. I think it's possible he will finish this fight down the stretch because it's normally in round 3 when Bobby Green is coming on the strongest. And I thought Nasrat was slowing down in that Dan Hooker fight a bit. And I was kind of surprised that he got thoroughly out-grappled by Dan Hooker. I know Dan showed off some takedowns against Poirier and some other guys, but, he was like body locking him, lifting him in the air, throwing him every which way, and just bodying him into the clinch. I also think Bobby is underrated from the clinch positions. His tie clinch is dangerous, man. He throws knees from there. And I just thought he looked sharper than ever against Al Iaquinta. I threw that fight out of my capping because Al basically admitted to quitting in the fight. But would you not quit if you're Al Iaquinta? You had no fucking chance. Bobby was completely styling on him, not letting him land and landing everything clean on the chin. It's like, yeah, Al was just getting fucked up. So he was like, I don't need to do this anymore. As in stay in this fight getting beat up. So I think that Bobby Green, takes a little bit more shit than he deserves. I think the line was short at -135. So I played Bobby Green here on the money line. I think round 3 or decision at +145 is a pretty good bet as well. And the decision line at +190 is in some DGen parlays for me as well. I think that Bobby Green wins this fight on points more often than not. But even if this fight finishes, I think Bobby Green has a decent chance of finishing as well. So give me Bobby Green here on the money line. I think it's short. Bo, how do you feel?
Yeah, I think you hit everything on the head there, man. I'm not going to go on too long. I agree with pretty much every sentiment you made. I think Bobby's been criminally underrated his whole career, and I think it's pretty cool that he's kind of getting some respect now. And let's talk about the grappling for a sec. It's not like you can't go into this fight relying on Bobby that he's going to wrestle, but he is a very underrated wrestler, and he has potential to look like -400. If he goes out there and wrestles Nasrat, dude, he has good control on the ground. He's a pretty damn good wrestler. That in and of itself gives kind of credence to play this line. But even on the feet, man, I really do think he styles on Nasrat. Nasrat's not a bad boxer. He's fast. He comes in, he hits hard. That left hook is nice. I really like Bobby, man. I think especially down the stretch, he's going to take over. But like I said, I think he has kind of the potential to look -400 here. But yeah, I at one point was kind of high on Nasrat, and then he just has some tendencies in the Drew Dober fight and getting caught that bad. And
he normally doesn't throw kicks. He tried to throw a kick there and died. Fucking brutal, dude.
Yeah, dude. I just I got in on Bobby. I'm actually holding a pretty shitty price on him. I bet him like a month and a half ago, soon after the line came out at -155. So I'm not stoked about that. I wish that I would have waited, but it happens to all of us. And I think Bobby's going to style on him, man. I understand why people are hesitant to play Bobby as a favorite based on the fact that he kind of does tend to fight to close margins. And it's kind of part of the way he's got one of the most entertaining styles in the UFC. He likes to, he does these little shoulder roll thing. And he, I understand why people don't want to bet him because he does fight to close fights. But in general here, I think he styles on Nasrat and I think he covers his price.
Hell yeah, brother. I'm glad we feel the same way on that one. James, do you feel the same way or you like the Nasrat side, brother?
Don't like the Nasrat side. Don't really like the Bobby side too much. I just think it's going to be a close fight, man. Like every single one of Bobby's fights ever, unless he's fighting Ally Quinta, who said he's retiring. You know, it's another one. Said they're retiring, quits. You know, we've never seen Al quit ever in his career. One of the toughest guys in UFC history in that division, and the guy quits like that. You know, so it's hard to predict these MMA fights in general when you get stuff like that happening, but especially when fighters are having their retirement fight. But I just think Bobby Green is going to fight close. You know, Nasrat's a decent fighter. Nasrat also can fight close, you know, at times. I remember he fought Mark Diakese, and we spoke a little bit about this in the DM. In that Diakese fight, he put on his career best performance, in my opinion. You know, haven't really seen him look that good since, so it's hard to kind of cap that one in, because I do think that if he fights the way he fought in that fight, this is going to be a very, very tough fight for Bobby Green, and I think it could, you know, split decision type fight. Even if he doesn't fight like that, I still think it could be a split decision type fight, man. Bobby Green's got that shoulder roll style. He's there to be hit because he likes to stay in that pocket boxing range, but then he's there to be hit by kicks. You know, that's the reason he lost against Rafael Fiziev, right? Because in the boxing, it was fairly close, but obviously Fiziev was just kicking him 50 times, and Bobby was just standing there and trying to shoulder roll a kick, you know, which you can't do because the kick's hitting your body, not your shoulder, right? So it's just annoying backing Bobby Green in a fight that I think is going to be pretty close. Even though it might not have to be close, Bobby's going to make it close just because that's his style, you know, like Bo said. I did back Bobby Green against Alan Patrick. I backed Bobby Green against Lando Venata. I bet Bobby Green in lots of fights, you know, but even in the fights he's losing, he's going close. Clay Guida, I bet him in that fight, like a minus 250 favorite. It's embarrassing, you know. The guy almost lost to Clay Guida. Yeah, Guida's, you know, grindy wrestler type, but that was a close fight, man. Trinaldo lost that fight, close fight. Who else did he lose? Thiago Moises, you know, another close fight. It is kind of hard to get behind Bobby as a favorite when he's going to these close fights. I don't think that he's going to stop Nasrat, you know. I'd be highly surprised. Yeah, he knocked out Ally Quinta, who's never been knocked out before, you know, ever in his career, really. But the guy's retiring, as I just said, you know, so that has a lot of context to that fight. Comes out of the fight after, literally admits he quit. So I don't think Bobby's really going to finish Nasrat. You know, I mean, who has Bobby finished in the UFC, man? Let me get his record up because the guy just he can't finish.
James Krause. James Krause.
Yeah. James Krause.
Via a very weird low kick exchange. He basically like kicked him in the groin twice, then kicked him mostly in the body, but also a little in the cup, and they called it a TKO.
Dude, the funniest thing about that is with Bobby. I mean, I've been a fan of him since I started watching MMA fucking when I was like 12 or 13 when I was young. I've been a fan of Bobby for a long time, and I've bet him in pretty much all of his UFC fights since I've been betting. I've bet him in most of them, which is, I mean, he's lost some bad decisions. He's lost some close ones. And I actually used to bet him by KO at crazy numbers in a lot of his fights because I was like, this is the fucking one. And then I think I had 4 units on him versus Ally Quinta money line. And I fucking can't believe that I didn't play the KO there, man. Like, that was the fucking one, and I missed it. So I still kick myself for not playing KO there. I forget who it was. There was someone on Twitter. It was Gugabe, who was going off about the under being lined as a women's fight and all this and that. And I honestly don't see that as much here. I think on both sides, the percentage of them finishing is pretty low probability. But like James was saying, man, I understand not passing on Bobby Green as a minus 140 favorite or whatever he is now. Just for fighting the close margins, but I hope he comes out here and he fucking wrestles, man. That would make me happy. If he's just coming out and body locking Nasrat over and over again. But I think he doesn't. But
there's 2 things that I do want to add to this breakdown, though, which I agree that he can wrestle, but he probably won't unless he needs to, or unless Nasrat is like crashing into the pocket. Then he wrestles reactively at times just to show people he can. But I think that Bobby Green, the thing that's being underrated about him is that he's a switch stance fighter. And so, you know, I think that he struggled a little bit against southpaws, but in this matchup, he's going to be able to switch stances, and he does throw kicks. And that's the thing is like Fiziev is so much faster and better at kicking. So Bobby tried to box him and got kicked a lot, but then he returned kicks at the end that I thought were landing pretty effectively. Back in his Josh Thompson fight, he was throwing kicks to the body and stuff like that. He's been throwing kicks for a while. He was muted in his kicking offense against Fiziev. I think that's going to open up here against Nasrat, who doesn't kick. and who Bobby's not going to be afraid to get taken down by either. So I think that Bobby can open up with the kicks more in this matchup, and I think that could be the difference. He throws a nice teep kick to the body to maintain range. I think that's going to pierce Nasrat a few times as he comes forward with those blitzes. So War Bobby Green, I think minus 135 is a good number. I think he hindsight looks minus 185, but we're going to have to wait and see. Pay to find out on Saturday night. I think it's a great main card opener for the pay-per-view.
Minus 185, 5 times, fight to go to decision. Much rather play that than Bobby Green, honestly, man. The fights, I highly doubt this fight's getting stopped, man. Minus 185 to go to decision. That's a solid price for me, man. That's the way I take it. I do think Bobby's going to win, but that's the way I take it.
That's fair.
Fair play. And I also don't think that that's the worst hedge in the world. I don't think that's the worst hedge in the world because Bobby has lost a lot of split decisions, a lot of close decisions.
I'm going to look right now. Actually, I don't know if they have
the split decision price.
What are the odds on fight goes to split? I bet it's got to be like, there was one last week that someone was talking about. It's got to be like +3 or +4, something like that. But I mean, dude,
people hop in my DMs and they're like, oh, like, do you reckon there's value on this split decision? And I'm like, bro, how am I going to judge a split decision? Like, it's a mad thing to judge, But with Bobby Green, you can judge it, though.
If there was, I agree with that. I mean, generally, when people predict a fight goes to split, it's kind of like, all right, well, I mean, I always think that's kind of funny. But with a fight like Bobby Green, man, I understand people saying that. I think he covers his price here, and I hope he fucks up Nasrat, but we'll see.
Let's get it, brother. And by the way, +400, it's about a 20% indication. So right now, that's what they believe. And I think that that's probably fair play. So we can move along, guys. We got the next fight on the card here. Also in the lightweight division, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, as they say. And Alexander Hernandez bitched that he wasn't on the main card. He got his wish, and he'll be taking on Renato Moicano in the 155-pound division. You basically got a very competent submission grappler, and Renato Moicano exploited a couple weak submission wrestlers, in my opinion. No offense to Jai Herbert, who is very fun on the feet and cashed me a nice comma-worthy round 1 KO ticket. But
fuck yeah, I was on that too.
Dude, great play.
Easy.
Very easy bread there. And shouts to comma-worthy for the dough on the way out. But I think that this is the kind of fight that I look at on paper, and for me, it felt like a dog or pass situation. I do think that Moicano is the better fighter, but I've just seen him fall apart on the feet when faced with power and aggression early. And I do think that, for all the faults in Hernandez's game, that's like one of the things that I think he can do effectively. And I think that he's a confidence-based fighter. If he thinks he can finish you, then he's going to be confident. I think that if he gets through 7 minutes of this fight and hasn't finished, he's going to start to break in terms of confidence, and that could be a problem for him down the stretch. I do think that we could see, Moicano take over the fight. I understand why he's the moneyline favorite, but just with my betting style, I don't like backing somebody like Moicano, who I've seen fold to strikes a lot of times now in the UFC at 45, at 55. And I think a lot of his best performances in the UFC were at 145 pounds. He's got a big frame, so I understand why he doesn't want to make the weight cut. But at 155, there's a lot of big hitters. There's a lot of guys that move faster than him. So I think that in terms of closing the distance early, Hernandez will be live to knock him out. But I also think that, I don't know. I just see Moicano taking over the fight later. So it's just not a fight I'm passionate enough to bet. But the early KO numbers on Hernandez are a little bit short for me. I thought about playing it, and then I looked, and they weren't that great. So nothing I'm really supremely interested in playing here. Thought about the under as well, but I think Hernandez could just get gritted to a decision by Moicano down the stretch. So, Bo, how do you feel about this one?
Yeah, dude, I went into this one without many strong takes and kind of came out with it with no strong convictions. I understand people, honestly, I understand people playing both sides. Moicano, offensively as a boxer, he's actually pretty good. Like, if you watch back, when I watched that Fiziev fight back, I was kind of surprised. He had a decent amount of success offensively. But, man, when he's in the pocket, dude, he is so easy to hit, and his durability is still in question. I know he's only really lost to kind of elite fighters. But Hernandez blitzing in, and he kind of has the style to beat Moicano on the feet, honestly. I just have a hard time backing a guy like Hernandez. And some of those losses, dude, like, holy fuck. The Moises fight was such a bad look. There's times where he's not really able to get going. And then it's just like he gets confused. And it's just, dude, That one was
1.5 units at plus 199. Thiago Moises. Ha!
That was a great bet, dude. I mean, I didn't have any money on that fight, but I didn't see that coming. I don't trust Hernandez at all, dude. He's a fantastic athlete, and he's kind of just like a gym rat. But I don't know if he's fucking built to keep doing this whole fighting thing, man. Like the Donald Cerrone fight was a super rough look, and I think if he has any chance to win this fight, it kind of does play into his style of crashing forward, coming into the pocket, and if he just dictates the pace on the feet against Moicano, maybe he looks like a hindsight big favorite. He is a tough guy to out-grapple, though. I think you watched the OAM fight, who I rate fairly high as a grappler. That was a bizarre fight. He kind of did break OAM in that fight. But I'm curious to see how it goes. I'm excited for this fight from a fan perspective, honestly, just to see how Moicano approaches the grappling with him. Because I think Moicano, when he gets on top, man, he's impressive. And you can't take too much stake from the Jai Herbert fight because Jai off his back is not exactly he's not Lachlan Giles. He's not fantastic off his back. But I think this fight could play out a bunch of different ways, man, and I'm very comfortable passing. I think Magic MMA is riding the Hernandez train on Twitter, which I love to see, but I'm comfortable passing on this fight, man. I think Hernandez KO is live. I think Moicano stopping him down the stretch, maybe round 3 sub or something if you want to get degen with it. But yeah, man, let's hear from you, James. I'm pretty comfortable passing on this.
Yeah, I got a bet on this, man. I played Hernandez about a week ago, plus 145 or plus 140 or something like that. It's a weird one for me because I feel like, I don't know, man. I feel like Moicano's the better fighter in most of MMA, right? So I feel like he should be the favorite. But it's this weird fight where I feel like one fighter is better in most of MMA, but the other fighter, Hernandez in this case, has areas in the fight where he can win the fight. I feel the blitzing in style, and there's a few positions in the feet, in the striking, a few ranges that Hernandez can hurt Moicano badly. You know, I've seen Moicano hurt many times now, and yeah, as you said, he's only been hurt by the best, but I think Hernandez has power, and especially when he blitzes in, you know, that power translates. I just feel like, I don't know, man. I got a feeling that Hernandez is going to hurt Moicano in this fight. And then also with the grappling, I do think Hernandez can take Moicano down when he wants. Not necessarily can do much on top. You know, he might even get swept because I think Moicano is a pretty good jiu-jitsu practitioner. I don't really know how good he is off his back, to be honest. Mainly what I know of Moicano and what I have seen from Moicano is mainly on top. But I do think Hernandez can take him down, you know, grind him out a little bit, maybe, you know, for a minute or two, you know, a minute and a half or something. I don't think he can stay there all round. But if it's a back and forth round and he's, you know, gets on top in the last minute, he'll take the round. We know how judges score rounds. You know, you can be getting your ass whipped for 4 minutes and then you take someone down, stay on top, do nothing for a minute, and you win the round, right? So, I mean, I think that's live for Hernandez. And then I also think the KO is live for Hernandez. And I just like Hernandez, man. I did a post on Twitter like 5 days ago, posting up a couple of bet slips. Last time Hernandez fought, he won me about 50 G's, him and Douglas De Silva de Andrade. So I got to ride with him one more time. You know? He's not going to win.
What happened to Douglas, dude? You left him off the bus, bro. What the hell? He
true.
Circle, and now this guy's just out in the dust, dude.
Douglas is 36, man. We've used him for what he was used for, but Hernandez
your purpose has been served.
Exactly, bro. Hernandez is still there, you know. Hernandez is he's still young. He's still a bit youthful. He's still got a chance to win this fight. And I don't know. I played it. I'm not super confident in it, but riding with Hernandez. I want him to get an early KO because I do think it might get a bit sticky, but we're going with Hernandez.
I would tend to agree with you, and I think that that's a lot of his win equity, but I think that he's got a good chance to win this fight. So Alexander Hernandez, potential dog play. I'm kind of waiting to see, though. I've heard a lot of people on the Moicano side this week, so I would like to see that money line creep back out a little bit. Maybe we see those plus 150s again, because I did see that earlier in the week. I wanted to take advantage. The line went away. So something I'll be keeping an eye on as we get down the stretch here of fight week. Next up, guys, we've got a fight in the 185-pound division. One of my absolute boys for life. Love him to death, Derek Brunson. Blonde Brunson, Jamie Gibbs gang, UNC Pembroke's finest, damn good wrestler, hell of a guy, hell of a competitor. But I must say, he's got his hands full. He's got Jared Cannonier, the Killa Gorilla. And I think that, I've been on the Blonde Brunson bus. I've been the conductor. I've been sitting at the front. I told everybody Kevin Holland was not going to beat this man because he gives up his back in every exchange on the feet, and that Derrick Brunson will not let you get away with that for free. And in addition, I played the subline there. He had a head and arm choke locked on for like 2 minutes and couldn't finish. But at plus 1,400, I was like, solid bet. I'd take that anytime somebody gets a prolonged submission attempt like that. And then, we see the Darren Till fight, and he gets lined to win by sub at plus 2,900. They doubled the price against somebody who I rate as a worse grappler.
Weren't you on that? Didn't you play that?
I did play
dude,
that.
That was great. That was money.
Dude, Brunson sub, I'm telling you, is the greatest bet I've ever made in my life. So when I say that I have respect for Derrick Brunson on another level, I think that this guy is an excellent fighter. I think he is going to get knocked into fucking orbit on Saturday night, guys. And I say this as a fan, as a supporter, as somebody who I think that he definitely, he's a great fighter. He could win this fight. I'm not trying to count him out. But when I look at this fight, I see one guy who is dangerous at all times and who is like built out of stone. And I see another fighter who is a little bit fragile. I described him earlier this week as held together by shoelaces. I love Derrick Brunson, but every fight is on the edge of this like teetering on disaster. Darren Till had him on skate. Kevin Holland, who I thought he was going to completely outclass and finish, had him on skates and almost made that, sneaky-ish late comeback there as Derrick got completely tired. So this is a 3-round fight. I think that that's the only reason that this is a winnable fight for Derrick. Obviously he could finish the fight. He's got good power in his hands. He has a submission game that's underrated. But I think that Cannonier is no slouch on the ground, man. Every time I've seen somebody take this guy down, he turns to a base and pops right back up to his feet. And it's pretty remarkable. Robert Whittaker was not credited with any takedowns in the fight against Cannonier. But if you watch it, he hits one of the slickest, like, step outside trips you'll see in, like, modern MMA. And instantly Jared Cannonier no-sells him back to his feet. And they're like, it's not even enough time to credit him with a takedown. So I think that when I watch Jared Cannonier in his recent bouts as a middleweight, I see a guy who is a handful to hold down. I see a guy who's got a metric S ton of power, and I see an opponent who can't really take hard punches at this point in his career. Edmund Shabazian, was getting the better of Derrick on the feet early on, and I think Derrick was able to make some adjustments and work his way back in, but that's against a green UFC newcomer. Jared Cannonier, while he has some ups and downs in the organization, he is not that. He's fought a lot of pretty tough guys in this organization, and he's taken the licks. He's been on the other end. That Robert Whittaker fight was right in the balance, and he almost knocked Robert Whittaker out. I think that Jared Cannonier is a fucking problem. I think he will be fighting for the title. If Blonde Brunson gets the title shot and takes my money, it would be the only bet that I'm celebrating losing. But granted, guys, I'm going to be exposed to Jared Cannonier here bigly. I think that Jared is going to win this fight and win it emphatically. Bo, how do you feel?
Yeah, dude, you nailed it on the head, man. I got quite a bit of money on Jared. The line went down again today too, and I might honestly add to it. I'm pretty damn confident here, dude. I think he chews up the leg early. I think he stops the takedowns, even if he gets down on a hip. Dude, he is explosive as hell getting back up. And Brunson is the best wrestler that he's faced yet. I think that's 100% fair to say. But dude, Cannonier hits like a motherfucker. And if he's taking shots like he did against Edmund, like he did against Till, like he did against Holland, even just a few times, bro, he's going down hard. And I think Brunson's getting fucked up here. Even in a 3-round fight, I trust Cannonier almost even more, dude. I just, man, it's tough for me to see how Brunson wins this. He really has to get a takedown at the beginning of each round and control for the whole round or finish him. Because I think the second they're on the feet, he's a liability. He's got a nice hook, and he might have a little bit of underrated of the striking game, but I think his leg gets chewed up real bad. Jared has some of the nastiest leg kicks I've ever seen, and he's a big boy. He's strong as hell. I trust Jared quite a bit here. I wish he had a little bit more volume on the feet. he sometimes gets a little bit too patient. Against the Whittaker fight was tough, man. I watched that yesterday again. Whittaker was a pretty bad matchup for him in that regard, just the way that he treats space. And Jared kind of had a hard time, besides landing the leg kicks, of actually closing distance and getting in there. But yeah, I trust Jared just from everything I said. I trust him pretty close to knock out Brunson here. I wish the line was wider on the KO. I was kind of upset by that. I had Jared pretty big against Kelvin, and I was also a little bit on his KO, like plus 400 or something. But yeah, man, the KO was like plus 120, 105 here, something like that. I'm totally good off that. I like Cannonier money line, minus 150, minus 155. I think that's all good. So yeah, I laid it.
Me as well, brother. And, just to bolster that point, man, when I look at Derrick Brunson, what I'm seeing is a lot of opportunistic takedowns. His striking game reminds me of Frankie Edgar in that when his wrestling is working together with the striking, it does very well. I think that Derrick succeeds when he makes you start wrestling, then he punches you. And then as soon as you try and defend the strike or throw back, then he wrestles you again. I think that's what he's pretty good at. I just think that Jared's going to be able to create so much damage on his way in. Jared has a lot of good tools for intercepting wrestlers. His whole game is built upon people trying to wrestle him. So he's going to be throwing these. He's going to be throwing uppercuts. He's going to be throwing kicks in this matchup. And I think all of that creates a liability for Derrick to cover distance. And he's never covered distance in a very pure fashion. Darren Till literally hurt him on the way in and just has no takedown defense and no hits.
That was so bad.
He gave up a takedown where Brunson was looking up at the ceiling and just
so
pulled
bad.
him into the mount. It was insane.
Yeah,
So
that was nuts.
I don't expect that against somebody as physical as Jared. Lucrative, do you feel the same way, my friend, or do you feel a little different about this one?
Man, Bo already knows, Bo already knows how I feel on this one. I'm going to complete the three-peat because I think Jared Cannonier is going to fuck Derrick Brunson up here, Me and you did an Instagram live last week, and we spoke about this matchup, and that was prior to tape. And I said that I'm liking Jared prior to tape, and after tape, I like him even more, honestly. I did a post earlier on Twitter saying if I get to 4,000 followers, I'm going to put out the bet I was considering making one of my big plays. You guys know my big plays are anything over 5 units. I'm 29-0 on them bets. I've never lost a bet that I've bet over 5 units, all on Bet MMA. And I was considering one this week. I'm at 5 units at the moment. I'm probably going to stick with 5, honestly. But that's Jared Cannonier. So for everybody in the chat, I haven't posted that yet. Jared Cannonier was my big bet for this weekend. I think he's going to defend the takedowns. And I think if he doesn't defend the takedowns, he's going to be able to pop back to his feet. Brunson has to hold him down for 13 minutes. Yeah. He has to hold him down for 12, 30 minutes. I really don't think he's going to do it, man. Jared Cannonier is so explosive. He's a freak in terms of his physicality, man. There's not many fighters that can match him in terms of physicality in the UFC. Honestly, he's in the bracket of Ngannou and that. He'll get taken down. He pops back up bro, it's insane, His physicality is mad. I could just imagine trying to take him down. His one-punch power... bro, Brunson's fucked, man. Brunson is going to try and take this guy down, and he's going to get hit hard. The only reason I'm not going heavy, and I am going heavy, I'm going heavy. I got a lot of money on him, but the only reason I'm not going, just full send is because, like Bo said, it is the best wrestler he's ever fought, right? So that he's going to have to pass that test. He's never fought a wrestler this good, so he does have to pass that test. So that's the reason I'm not going super heavy, but I think Cannonier's going to win. I think he's probably going to win by knockout. Brunson gets hurt a lot in his fights. We saw what happened to Jack Hermansson. They was this close. There was no range for Jared Cannonier to throw a strike, and he manages to throw an uppercut that just completely folds Jack Hermansson when Jack was shooting him for a takedown. Brunson shoots him for takedowns. He's kind of sloppy when he does it, man. Darren Till wasn't able to capitalize, but I think Jared Cannonier is going to be able to capitalize, So, yeah, I'm on Cannonier big here.
Yeah, I'm glad we're all on the same page with this one. I think it's one of the better bets on the card. And I don't think Juan Brunson's going to keep it going here. But, dude, I might end up adding to it if the line stays at 150 or whatever.
Yeah, guys, I
shall
kept
see.
track on this line all week because
It's
I
not
was
staying
waiting
there
for the
now.
minus 150s.
Dude, he's
And
minus 152 still, bro.
You
That's
better
wild.
do him now because he's gone. After this podcast, after I put my tweet out, they're watching. So you better do it right now, man.
Yeah, that's a fact. James is on the money there. So, guys, if you want to get down on that, I would recommend you do it soon. Because I'll tell you something. You know, there's no certainties, right? There are no locks in MMA. But what I will say is every smart guy that I know in this space at the top of the leaderboard on BetMMA is on one side. And I'm going to leave it at that. So we're going to move on to the next fight here, guys. We've got a very fun heavyweight co-main event. We've got 72 people rocking live with us. Appreciate each and every one of you guys. If you haven't already, go ahead and throw a like on this video. Go ahead and subscribe. Find my guests. Go ahead and follow them on social media. Appreciate these guys stopping by. And we're about to break down this very fun heavyweight main event. Let us know your thoughts in the chat. Let us know in the comments below this video, what's the best bet on the card in your opinion as well. But I'm going to go first on this one, boys, because I do have a bet here. I'm on Tai Tuivasa, guys. I think that Derrick Lewis, he is typically a very good dog, right? Derrick Lewis as an underdog has just been a production machine in the UFC, and he's folded up a lot of tickets, even on, pretty sound guys. I think that when I look at this fight, I see a guy who is on the come up, younger, got pretty good durability. He's been hurt before, but it's heavyweight. Guys get hurt. I think his recoverability is fairly solid. And when I look at the other side, man, Derrick Lewis, he's had a lot of fights where he gets overwhelmed a little bit. He doesn't throw very much in terms of volume. On paper, Tai throws like a significant amount more, lands a significant amount more. So he's going to get off and land more in this fight and win a decision if it goes 15 minutes, as far as I'm concerned. I think that Derrick Lewis has won a lot of decisions based on the fact that guys are afraid to engage with him. I don't think we're going to see that from Tai. For better or worse, I think Tai might die in the first round, but I think he's going to come after Derrick and get in the fight here a little bit. And so I think that it could be greasy, it could be dangerous, and I could fold up the ticket quick on this one. But I think this is a 50-50 fight. I see two guys who are going to get in the pocket and exchange, two guys who have a tremendous amount of power. If I told you that they had the same knockdown rate in the UFC, would you believe me? But it's the case. And Tai's got 6 UFC knockouts. The only difference is he's been knocked down a little bit more. But again, Derrick Lewis, most of the shots that he faces are low kicks from the outside, a teep kick to the body. Guys try and stay away from Derrick Lewis most often. But athletic guys who are fast, who have good hand speed, like Tai Tuivasa, he's also a southpaw. I think that he could offer a lot to Derrick Lewis in this fight, and I think that he's going to knock him out. I think Tai Tuivasa, he's never been above plus 190 in a UFC fight to win the fight by knockout. He's plus 250 in this spot to win the fight by knockout. I think that's a little surprising because Derrick Lewis, I think in all of his UFC fights has been finished that he lost. So he's got a good record in decisions, but I think he's going to get out volumed here. And I think on top of that, the finishing equity is roughly evenly distributed. I like Tai Tuivasa for a bet here. And I bet him at plus 170. I'll probably have a little bit on the KO line as well. How do you gentlemen feel about this? We'll start with Lucrative.
It's kind of a hard one for me, honestly, in terms of I think Lewis should be favorite. I think Lewis probably will win because he's got a lot more experience at this level. He's fought much better guys. He's more powerful. He's got more power. I put him right up there with Ngannou in terms of one-punch power. I just think Ngannou is just so much more athletic, so much more of a freak that he's able to land that power a lot more often than Derrick Lewis, right? Tai Tuivasa has got a lot of power in his own right, but it's not on the level of Derrick, in my opinion. And Tai, he's a bit of a reckless motherfucker, come forward like a madman. Whereas Derrick Lewis, he's kind of patient. He stays on the outside and he just picks his, he does at times run forward. I remember I backed him in an Ilir Latifi fight and kept on getting taken down. When he was on his feet, he just runs straight at him, but usually he stays on the outside, whereas Tai is a little bit different. I do give some credence to Tai in terms of the movement, the footwork, the leg kicks. The volume in general seems to be there a little bit more for Tai, but Derrick is so good at offsetting volume with his power that I don't really know who's going to win that battle. Tai might do some leg kicks and it'll come through with a few 1-2s, but Derrick's so powerful that it might just offset all of the work that Ty's done already. So honestly, I don't really have a good read on how the fight's going to go, man. I could see the fight going to decision, and I could see Derrick Lewis getting a round 1 KO. Like, honestly, I don't have too much to say about this fight. I just don't get the read. We come to them fights every now and then where we're like, you know what? I don't really know what's going to happen. And then someone else you speak to about the fight's like, no, this is going to happen. So it's funny how we all see things differently, but curious to see how, what Bo thinks about this fight. But for me, I don't really have too much to say. I think the line is probably accurate.
Yeah, dude, this is I'm actually kind of in a similar boat, dude. This is one of the few fights on the card I honestly didn't spend that long on tape. I do not have a good read for this fight, man. I don't have a good feel for it. Lewis is one of those guys, man, like even in the Dawkins fight, he just waits and waits, and then he kind of he just has that one thing. He can change a fight with his power. And the thing is, when Lewis, he is accurate. He knows he has good timing. And I think at some point in this fight, man, it's hard for me to trust that he's not going to clip Tai. And maybe he can take the first couple shots, but it's a tough one for me to say from a money line perspective. I guess that I favor Tai. If you're going to play the straight up money lines, because I don't have an interest in laying Derrick Lewis minus 180, minus 190. I'm not sure exactly what he's at now. Ty's gotten a lot better, and I think part of an angle for him, especially having success early, is staying on the outside and landing leg kicks. Lewis got his leg fucking chewed up against Curtis Blades, and Tai, I'm trying to think, maybe it was the Sakai fight in one of his fights. Recently, he's been throwing a lot more leg kicks, dude. He opened a fight with like 10 leg kicks, and I think that's part of an angle that could kind of mitigate some of Lewis's ability to move, and Tai does have better volume, so there is a path for Tai here. I understand the angle on that. I don't have a great feel for Lewis fights at this point. I still can't believe I didn't play him as a dog against Dawkins. I think that is kind of criminal that I didn't do that. But as a favorite here, getting close to, 65%, I'm kind of chilling. I'm going to sit back and enjoy this one as a co-main event in his hometown in Houston. But I'm rooting for your play, Liam. I like the odds you got on Bam Bam, and it should be fun, man.
But
Thank you, brother.
Thinking about it, man, like not to cut you off, sorry, bro. Like just to add my last point. You say, you wanted to play Dorcas and that, but I thought before that fight, like, you know what, Dorcas is very agile heavyweight, he might be able to jab and just move. Yeah, it was 5 rounds, but I thought he could jab, move, break Derrick down. I didn't bet on the fight, but I mean, what is Tai going to do differently than Dorcas, really? Like, is Tai really going to avoid the shot for 15 minutes? Tai's a madman. Tai comes forward like a lunatic. He will throw leg kicks, but we saw what happened against Greg Hardy. He's still engaged in the middle. Tai has never, ever fought on the outside for 15 minutes in his entire career, right? Is he going to do it against Derrick Lewis? Maybe. I don't really know how Tai is going to avoid that shot for 15 minutes. Just speaking out loud, I'm thinking about it now. Yeah. But at the same time, I don't want to lay the money line. But bro, I'm definitely rooting for you, Liam. So hopefully he can, or hopefully he can knock him out, But yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one.
It's a weird one to cap. It's a hard fight to cap.
I totally agree, boys. And to be honest with you, this is a fight that I kind of capped out as a theory. Like, this isn't something I was trying to go to tape on, right? I basically just thought about the line, and I'm like, plus 170. It's a heavyweight fight where they're both going to come out, probably throw recklessly. One guy's got the significant volume advantage. He's much younger, and they both are prone to die. They both are prone to kill people. I'm like, that seems like a 50-50 fight. Just on paper. I know Derrick has a little bit more power. He's got more championship experience, but he's older. They both are coming in at 265. They both have the weight and the power to knock somebody out. So for me, it's kind of a wash. I think the hand speed favors Tai. And as my man Daz said, first time Tai hits Lewis, his head will turn and the next one will hit him in the ear. Derrick, a lot of times, he's a good hammer. He is a poor nail, guys. JDS started landing a couple punches on him and he was like, yo, fuck this. Tai got finished and he was pissed. He wanted that fight to continue. He just couldn't keep going. I felt like it's a little bit of a different stoppage. And we've seen Derrick just make a decision to not fight anymore. In his fights, He gets paid a lot of money to show up. I think that there's going to come a day when Derrick Lewis phones one in, and he's done it before. This is a 3-round fight, so maybe it's not this one. But the last time he was in Houston, he threw 7 strikes in the fight. So, let's go Bam Bam. And shoeys all around. I'll do a shoey and record it on video if Bam Bam cashes this big one for me. We can move right along, guys. We got the main event of the evening, a fight that I'm fired up about. This is a freaking hell of a fight and doesn't get the plaudits it deserves, in my opinion. At the time that this fight was first booked, I want to say Rob Whittaker was number 3 on the pound for pound list. Izzy ended up closing as a favorite in that fight as well. So he opened up minus 185 on the Rob Whittaker side, plus 160 Israel Adesanya. That at close was plus 110 on the Rob Whittaker side. So Israel Adesanya ended up closing as the betting favorite there. Now we are much more, significantly favoring Rob Whittaker going into this rematch. And, the data points that we have in between times don't necessarily suggest to me that the line should be this much wider. And the reasons being is as follows. 65% of the takedown attempts that we've seen from Robert Whittaker were in his last 3 fights, right? He just wasn't a very persistent wrestler in the octagon. He likes to strike. He's a fighter. He likes to get in a fight and throw down. And he's had war after war with Yoel Romero, but he also got knocked down twice in the Yoel Romero fight, then took some time off, came back, fought Adesanya, gets knocked down twice. It's like, obviously something needs to change. There's a couple guys that can hit me, hurt me, crack me. And I've been taking a lot of damage in these fights. I've been knocked out before. If I want to be successful, I got to change my style. Now he's firing off more takedown attempts. He's being more patient with his offense. He's keeping the volume up. He's still out-voluming people, outlanding them, but he's not throwing a crazy amount of strikes. That Adesanya fight, he came out like a bat out of hell, threw an insane amount of volume, kind of gassed himself, in my opinion, but also put himself in range to be hit over and over and over and over again early. I think in order for him to win this fight, he's got to limit the exchange rate. He's got to keep it a little bit closer, a little bit more within the margins. We saw Yoel Romero at 40 years of age almost sneak one over Israel Adesanya by just keeping on the outside, keeping a leg kick game going, and trying to burst forward a handful of times per round. On top of that, Yoel Romero has no top control game. He can get on top of somebody, post up on their shoulder, and drop 10 elbows on their head like he did to Lyoto Machida. Otherwise, he doesn't get on top of people. He takes them down for the fun and the sport of throwing them in the air. There's no control in a Yoel Romero fight. That's just not the case with somebody like Rob Whittaker, where he's been able to establish 2+ minutes of control time in these fights as well over the last 3. And so even against Jared Cannonier, in a fight where he wasn't able to get the takedowns going with as much success, he was able to get some cage control time as well. And I think that that's going to be critical for him here, right? If he's at distance with Israel Adesanya for 25 minutes, it's very likely he gets fucked up. We saw how that played out. Rob was the one who was more impatient, forced to come forward, forced because he's at the reach disadvantage to engage more often, and he was getting picked off with counters in the pocket. I think that if he takes a kick-heavy approach to this fight, which I know sounds crazy, but he's got those good intercepting low-line side kicks. I think he could fuck up the knees of Izzy. He's kind of got those long, lanky legs, and he puts a lot of emphasis on the kicks. 30-something% of Israel's strikes are kicks to the legs. So I think that Robert Whittaker's a tough guy. I think he could take some leg kicks in this fight, return them, and I think that he could offer, a close competitive fight here. My official prediction for this fight in my article previewing it is that Israel Adesanya wins the fight by 4th round TKO. I feel that way because, we've seen how this fight played out a little bit in short time. I think that Rob's still going to have a hard time closing that distance to get inside and wrestle, but I'm not going to count out a guy like Robert Whittaker and bet minus 2XX against him when he's performed so admirably as an underdog. 6-2 for a 75% win rate in the organization as an underdog, 80+% ROI. It's insane. It's insane numbers. If you look at Israel Adesanya, he has outperformed his odds, but just barely, right? Like he's just snuck over his odds expectation, and he lost as a minus 250 favorite to Jan Blachowicz. On the other side, the average price that you had to pay to back Robert Whittaker in the UFC was minus 116. That's insane. That's 52% on a guy who has a 80% win rate in the organization. So it's not an argument. It's not a conversation or a question. Robert Whittaker has been historically, systemically underrated on the money line, and that's a fact. So I'm going to bet on Robert Whittaker this weekend in all likelihood. I'm also going to bet on him to win the fight by decision. A lot of his win equity here is in a decision or in a late finish, I would think. I just don't see him having the power to really hurt Adesanya. He's never been dropped in the UFC. He's been hurt a little bit, but I think more often than not, even when Whittaker has hurt guys in his recent run, he's been a lot more composed, trying not to get out over his skis. And I think that he's going to try and find a way to win 3 rounds here. I think he could do it. I'm not going to put it past him. And I haven't loved everything I've seen from Izzy in the lead up to this fight. I thought that it was kind of a lackluster performance against Vettori. Even on rewatch, Vettori kind of made an ass of himself in some grappling positions where he could have had success. And blew it. He just blew it. He didn't throw enough. He didn't do enough. And then he's like, what? I didn't win the fight. It was just like a letdown performance from Marvin, as far as I'm concerned. I still felt like that fight was within the margins. And Izzy just keeps getting this very high justification on the money line, and he wins a lot of his fights, so it makes sense. But he's had a couple split decisions, a couple fights within the margins. I think it's a little bit generous, if I'm honest. James, do you feel the same way, or do you like your countrymen on the money line this weekend?
Well, the man sitting next to me, can you guys see that? Can you see who's there? You're both on mute, but can you see that?
Rob Whittaker peeking over the bottom there?
That's Bobby peeking right there. He was listening to what you said. That's the poster of the first fight, UFC 243 out there in Melbourne. But so he will be happy, but the man sitting next to him will be unhappy because I got Adesanya right there, and that's who I think is going to win the fight, man. I think Adesanya is, you know what? I think this is a fight. I think this rivalry is similar to Colby Covington and Usman. I feel like Colby's going to come close many, many times. He could potentially come close, but I don't think he's going to win against Izzy, man. I just think it's a real bad stylistic matchup for Robert Whittaker here. I think Robert Whittaker's going to always lose on the feet. He might get knocked out. He might play it much safer this time and not get knocked out. I think he's going to get outpointed. I think the bigger shots are going to come from Izzy. I think Izzy's going to land more, although he might throw less. And then it begs the question, can he be taken down, right? Izzy has made his name from being one of the best strikers ever seen in MMA, right? One of the best kickboxers in the sport of all time. So he's had to develop his game of takedown defense. And I think Robert has to get takedowns here to win this fight. Do I think he can get takedowns? Maybe. I think he can get 1 or 2 potentially. Do I think he can hold Israel Adesanya down? Not really. I think Israel Adesanya, has fought better wrestlers than Robert Whittaker, like Marvin Vettori. I don't think Robert's entries are worse than Vettori. I think his entries, because his MMA wrestling, his entries are better because he disguises his entries with hikes. He disguises his wrestling entries with in and out movement, right? That bouncy, flowy. Whereas Vettori is a lot more meat and potatoes, right? He'll grab you up against the cage, you'll go for the single leg, whatever. So I do think that there's credence to Robert getting Izzy down in terms of the entries, but I don't think there's almost any credence in him holding him down. So I do think it's going to be a striking affair for the majority of the fight, right? 5-round fight. And in the striking, I think Izzy's always going to be one step ahead, right? I think Robert can make it look close, and then there's going to be this illusion of value, like, oh, but it was a close fight, like the Colby Covington versus Usman fights, the first, second, in my opinion, that's illusion of value. I think them Usman fights Colby times, Usman wins 9 times, honestly. I think Colby should be plus 900 in every fight they fight. And I also think
Colby won the second fight.
Yeah, I mean, I know that takes going around on Twitter, but I think this is one of the the same things, man. I think Whittaker can make it close.
He did not win that fight.
I think he can make it close, Whittaker, but I think he's going to lose every single time they fight. Maybe once or twice he gets the win out of 10. So, look, good luck on your bet. I understand it. Bobby Knuckles plus 240 seems absolutely insane, but I do think that Adesanya is at least minus 300. Minus 300 is 75%. I don't think there's anything wrong with minus 300 in my opinion.
Well, let's have Bo talk me out of it because I haven't made the bet yet. Bo, what do you think?
I am not here to talk you out of it, but Robert Whittaker is probably one of my favorite fighters in the entire roster. Since he came into the UFC, dude, he's such a fucking stud, and he's so much fun to watch. One of the favorite combinations out of anyone active that I like is that 1-2 or just the straight and then the head kick that he disguises behind it is fucking gorgeous. Robert Whittaker, for everything, I was going to come on here and make the exact same point you just made, James, that he's almost kind of the Colby Covington to Usman. He's the best fighter at middleweight. And if he doesn't beat Izzy, dude, I don't know who the fuck's gonna. Unless some young guy comes up. I mean, man, it's tough though. Watching that first fight, you can clearly tell, especially
Andre Muniz.
Oh my God. In the first fight, you can clearly tell, like, I'm not usually a guy who tries to take the narrative of like him being emotional. But he was rushing in. He was not using his similar entries and footwork that he usually does to kind of disguise attacks. Like, Bobby has a really good jab. And actually in the second round, dude, he had a lot more success than I remembered watching it live. Until it came to the knockout, I was kind of surprised when it came back. I watched it the other day when he gets fucking flatlined at the beginning of the first round, essentially knocked out. Came back and won like 60% of the second round until he got finished. But it was interesting that Izzy won that fight in the pocket to me. And I think a lot of Bobby's game just doesn't play into Izzy's game very well for him. But I think Bobby can make it close, man. Like you said, he needs 3 rounds. I think a finish is pretty low probability. And I think if you're betting Bobby, for some of the people I've talked to who are betting Bobby, it's how much of that is baked, or how much of that bet is the wrestling baked into. Because the angle's there. I don't think Bobby's a fantastic wrestler, but he's competent, man. And his top control is actually, it's not terrible. It's actually pretty good. And one thing I will say, and I know every time I've seen Izzy in half guard, I think it fucking blows my mind how bad he is from half guard, dude. He goes for that, if you might know him, the kamikaze sweep from half guard, like fucking over and over and over again. I mean, you can see it. What's
that?
That
was in the 4th and 5th round when he was tired against someone who weighed 40 pounds more than him.
Fair enough. I think there's a time. I think there will be a time in this fight if Robert gets it down. I don't think you can play this line based on the fact that you're expecting wrestling success from Robert Whittaker. I like the angle. Honestly, I'm rooting for Bobby. I hope it happens. And I think he can make the fight close, but I really came into tape thinking I was going to fucking play Bobby, and that was going to be like a big hot take that I had for this week. But I haven't done it yet. If he hits like, what is he now? Plus 240?
Yeah, plus 250 was the number I was kind of waiting on all week to get involved, but hasn't creeped over.
I understand the angle. I think 75, like Liam said, or not like Liam said, like James said, I think 75% isn't that far off. It's just weird to see this big of a number next to Robert Whittaker's name for such a world-class fighter. Like, he's truly one of the, if you really take everyone, he's pound for pound one of the best guys in the UFC still. Like, even if Izzy wasn't here, he'd be reigning the middleweights, in my opinion. Like, it's tough, man. It's such a goddamn good fight, and I'm really, really looking forward to it. It's just hard to see how a similar result doesn't happen. It's probably a little bit later. I think you mentioned earlier that you had Izzy KO4 on your write-up, and I actually don't think that's a bad shout. I think late finishes for Izzy kind of makes sense. But man, I hope Robert Whittaker makes it close, and I wish I had more of a take on a side in the fight. But I have no interest in laying Adesanya money line at minus 300. Just not something I'm going to do against someone who's as good as Robert Whittaker. And Liam, if you end up playing Bobby, man, I fucking hope he cashes. I'm rooting for him. But it's going to be a tough fight.
The only thing, I'm going to add about Robert Whittaker, because you said he's one of the pound for pound best in the UFC. He's one of the best fighters in the middleweight division's history. Facts. And when you get these fighters that are at that elite level, you can make a case that Adesanya, Peter Yan, a level above, but whatever. At the end of the day, these fighters are the elite of the elite of the elite, right? When you get these fighters, they are amazing at making leaps fight to fight. You think they're the finished product, and then they show something better in their next fight. Like Max Holloway, we thought he was the finished product, and then he fights like he's never fought against Calvin Kattar, throwing strikes that he's never even thrown before. When you get the elite of the elite, the jumps they can make, the in-fight jumps, the fight-to-fight jumps, and the skill sets that they can grow when you think they're the finished product are very vast. We don't get a lot of other fighters that can do that. So if anyone can make big improvements from one fight to the next, Robert Whittaker is in that level to do so. So, I just wanted to put that out there.
I think it's actually a really good point to make, man. Especially coming, I do think we've seen him improve a little bit. It's hard for a guy who's this far along in his career to make improvements fight to fight, but man, he's looked good in his last few fights, dude. Like the Cannonier fight, I rate Cannonier extremely high, and he fucking handled him, except for the end of the third round when he got caught with like 30 seconds to go. But dude, he like fully handled Cannonier.
He had Cannonier on ice skates, dude. He sent Cannonier face down to the canvas.
It's impressive, dude, for someone who's as durable as Cannonier is. Like that was legit, man. I love Bobby, man. I really hope he can get it done here. It's just tough. Israel Adesanya in space is so fucking good, dude. It's kind of unbelievable. It's a middleweight itself is honestly fairly shallow. I think we can agree on that. And there's some good fighters at the top. It's just hard for me to see anyone who beats Izzy if it's not going to be Bobby. Because he's like James just said, he's top 5, or he's probably, like, let's think about it. He's probably the number 2 or number 3 best middleweight ever, besides Silva and Adesanya. And even at this point, it's man, it's such a damn good fight.
Disrespecting my boy Chris? Are you No, I'm just playing. I'm just playing.
No, I love.
I mean, he went on such a bad run to end his career. It's unfortunate. Yeah. I'm so glad that he's coming back for one. Man.
I am too, bro.
Even if it's just a moral victory.
When I have 3 units on him against Uriah Hall, bro.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Did I, bro.
I lost that one too.
2 units, man. That was brutal, bro. Two
brutal.
2 units. But I don't know who they're gonna give him, but they better watch who they give him, man. Because they better give him a layup. Because if not,
fucking hell.
It's going to be brutal for Chris.
That I think are interesting before we close out the discussion on this main event. I'm looking and I'm seeing Israel Adesanya wins inside distance, goes distance, no action at -260. And for me, like, I think that most of the finishing equity in the fight lies on the Adesanya side. So if you want to play Adesanya without the risk that he gets greased on the cards, that's a way to do it at a slightly shorter price. Granted, you incur the risk of a Whittaker knockout, but, I don't think that's a huge possibility. So basically Whittaker sub is what you're fading there. And, I don't think that that's the worst angle in the world. On top of that, if you're on the Whittaker side, I'm seeing +5.5 points at +125. So if you just think he can survive and run away from him for 5 rounds, then you can still get him at plus money there. So a couple looks that I thought were interesting.
No, that's not a bad angle at all, actually.
So those are things I'm going to be thinking about. The total kind of perplexed me on this fight, like, I feel like if it ends in the 4th round, I won't be surprised. If it goes to decision, I won't be surprised. I don't think somebody's getting knocked out in the 1st round, though. I would be surprised by that, because I think Rob is going to be, like, intentional about feeling out the 1st round and not getting too close to him.
Yeah, I was honestly kind of surprised the total was 4.5. After, especially the way I guess the odd makers are just getting a little bit sharper. But going off how the first fight went, I was kind of expecting like a 3.5 or something like that. But fair play to him, man. It's like you said, I guess most of the finishing equity falls with Adesanya. It's hard to see Whittaker. I mean, honestly, I think this sounds kind of basic, but I think if he's going to knock him out, he's going to catch him with a fucking 1-2 head kick, like slip into the side or something like that. I really think that's like. Oh, man. It's tough, though. It's tough. And Whittaker decision at 550. If you like the Whittaker side, if you want to get greasy, it's not a bad way to do it. But who knows? Maybe if I'm feeling good, I'll end up with a bet on Whittaker before the night is over. But for right now, I'm pretty comfortable passing.
And to be honest, man, I kind of expect the line to blow out by fight time because I'm expecting a lot of Israel Adesanya Super Bowl parlays. I'm expecting a lot of like crossover action like that. So I do think that this line's going to continue to move in Izzy's direction up until fight time. And so I might just wait and try and get down as late as possible on this line if I decide to play it. Maybe I'll skim over the tape a little bit more out of respect for my man James' take on the end as well. So I think that we basically covered this card from top to bottom like a bunch of soldiers. I appreciate you guys rocking with me for 2 hours. I appreciate the 61 people still rocking with us live here at the end of the show. I think we've really hit the nail on the head here. So appreciate you guys. Want to give you guys a chance on the way out here to let people know if you got a play that you're most confident in, anything like that. My man Frank asked, what's good, Liam? Could you tell me your favorite straight pick? So if each of you guys want to drop your favorite pick or something like that on the way out, I'd appreciate it. And otherwise, just let the people know where they can find you. I know what my man James is going with.
I mean, me and Bo are going to say the same pick, but you chose me first. So, you can give him another one, Bo, or just stick with me. But Jared Cannonier is my best play. I got a lot of money on the guy, and I think he's going to knock out Brunson tomorrow. So, yeah, Jared Cannonier. Everyone knows where to find me, man. Lucrative MMA. I have a YouTube channel as well. So we're on YouTube right now. We're watching YouTube. Just go over to my channel. You don't even have to click off this video. Subscribe. I do card breakdowns every week and content on MMA. So, yeah, hit me up on the YouTube as well.
one of the sharpest in the game. It is always a pleasure to speak with you and learn something every time that we discuss these fights. So appreciate you. And guys, make sure you're following James. It is financially irresponsible to not follow James on Twitter. It's financially irresponsible to not go subscribe to the YouTube. So go do that right now. Bo, let the people know where they can find you, my friend.
Yeah, so my ad on Twitter is Mr. Robert Miller, and you can find me there. I'm not a content creator, man. I'm just a dude who knows a lot about fighting, who likes to bet on it. But if you want to hear me give praise to really shitty fighters on Twitter, good place to follow me for. But on this card, dude, I think probably the best bet in my opinion is, besides that fucking greasy under 2.5 on the Wells Blood Diamond fight. I think Cannonier is probably my favorite play. Behind that, I don't understand the late steam for Knight, I guess because of a weight miss, but I think Grishin is in a fucking real good spot to bop him up. And I like Ronnie Lawrence submission, man. I think that's way too fucking wide. I think rounds 2 and 3, he's got a real good chance to submit him. And 750 number is still out there if you live in New York or New Jersey. So I think those 3 are pretty solid. This was a great podcast, boys. Thanks for having me on. This was good. We broke this thing down all the way. And yeah, it was a good time.
Absolutely, my brother, and I couldn't agree more. I will admit that I locked in a Grishin and Cannonier parlay earlier in the show while we were sitting here. I think that that's a great look. James talked about the fact he thought those lines might run in terms of the Cannonier at -150. It's already out to -157.
I actually moved that line. I just bet that a little while.
I told you to get on it, man.
Yeah, so
and that's the way it is. So, guys, don't sleep. If you missed any of the plays that we gave out, go back, rewatch it. I'm going to try and timestamp this video as well. If you want my greasy degenerate parlays, I'm going to have many of them on this card, if I'm being honest. You can go find them on Twitter at Liam Picks Fights. If you want to find my premium plays, you can go to betmma.tips. You can go to scoresandodds.com. Also wrote an article previewing the main event for Scores and Odds this week. Roto Grinders, you'll find my main event preview with the pick, the prediction, my bets tomorrow as well. So, guys, appreciate all the support. Appreciate everybody who's been subscribing on YouTube. I'm going to check the count as soon as we get off here. If we're at 750, I'm dropping all my plays tomorrow at noon. If not, right before the fight card as usual. So appreciate you guys for being here. Appreciate my 2 guests. God bless you all. Enjoy those fights. Good luck on all your action. And until next time, this has been a great episode of Liam Picks Fights. Come back next week. We'll have all the same fun again. Take care, everybody.
Fuck yeah. Thanks, boys.